Look what I got.
I can't say it. What is it? What is it?
Is that Batman silly string?
Batman chapstick.
Oh. When you hold it that big to the like that close to the camera, it looks like a bigger bottle.
Really?
I thought it was silly string. Like chapstick and silly string are very different sizes of a container. Is it a certain? Is it what is like Batman flavor or what?
This one says it's blueberry, and the other one says it is.
It's not like wet and sweaty Batcave.
Bubblegum, blueberry and bubblegum.
None of that sounds like it should be a Batman flavor.
I'm gonna call one of them. I'm gonna call one of them brooding blueberry.
That's better. That's much better. And batshit crazy bubblegum. Hello and welcome to another episode of Bright Guy and Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick, and joining me for this episode is the Pirate Man, Andy Stolz.
What's up, podcast people?
Mr. Movie Slut Man, Josh Zorch.
I'm ready to lay it all out tonight.
And the Pokemon, Mike Bradley.
I accept that. It's
That's the most dad jokey I get, but you know, I felt like it.
You sound like the old person trying to talk to the 5-year-old 30 years ago about what Pokemon were.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
The Pokemans.
All right, thanks for everybody for joining us. Housekeeping stuff up front. So I'll admit, social media posts have been lacking recently, so I gotta give kudos for Josh for trying to keep the Facebook page alive, because most of the posts are from him, so I can't even take credit for some of the stuff that's up there. But I keep thinking in the meantime I might have to actually start making the podcast on Instagram or Threads or something, some social media site where I actually kind of want to be, because I have no desire to be on Twitter or Facebook anymore, which is why a lot of this stuff just doesn't happen. So if I go that route, I'll be sure to tell you 10 listeners out there where to find us if something changes. Other than that, I've mentioned it the last couple episodes, we're nearing our 300th episode. This should be episode 298, if my count is correct. So we're getting close. We still haven't officially figured out what we're going to do for 300. Regardless of what we choose, I've been saying that for anyone listening, if you'd like to contribute to the episode somehow, maybe give us some feedback on some favorite moments, topics, episodes. If you want to give us some questions, we can try to answer on the show. We'll work them in somewhere. Best way to, I guess I've never even talked about how you submit questions. If you want to give us questions, the best way would probably be on the Facebook page, I think. Either a comment on a post, or you can direct message the show page. We will see those. We will get those. That would probably be the easiest way to do it. So feel free to reach out, and we'll try to incorporate that in the show somehow, whatever we sort of decide to do. Also, I started doing it's something that I've long promised for I feel like over a year now. When we did our back catalog of video games episode, I have finally got to BioShock and started to stream BioShock on my Twitch channel. So if you want to check me out playing some BioShock, it's Jedi Bry Guy on Twitch. I've done one so far for, I don't know, about 2.5 hours or something like that, and I think I'm hoping to get another stream in sometime either tomorrow, when we record this, it's going to be Friday, so by the time this comes up, there might be a second video out. We'll see if I get any other time over the weekend, but I've heard the game is like 10 to 12 hours, so depending on how many hours I can get it on a clip, this might be a shorter of a I guess like VOD of the game. If I get a couple more videos in, we'll see how long it takes me to get through it. But anyway, I've long promised I was going to stream it. What's that?
So do you like your collectibles, and
that's right.
Could definitely sidetrack you a bit with that.
Does it have collectibles? Because at least in the couple hours I played, I didn't really come across any collectibles.
Unlockables, let's say.
Okay.
As opposed to collectibles.
Okay.
I think that's the better term for it.
Yeah, there's definitely like the abilities and stuff to get and that kind of stuff to unlock. I've gotten some of those stuff already. But yeah, so anyway, that was long promised. I'm finally getting to it. So yeah, if you want to check that out, feel free. But as for now, we are here to do another top 10 list. as we've done for years now, we do our anticipated list for the next year, and then we look back at our favorites from the previous year. So we just did our top 10 most anticipated for 2024, which means now we're doing our top 10 favorite movies of 2023. Andy has claimed he's seen at least 10 movies, so he made the cut for this one. He was able to join us. Just like we did for most anticipated, we'll be going through one person's list at a time. We'll cover honorable mentions first. The few movies that didn't make the cut, but we feel are still worth mentioning. We'll get through the bottom 5 of that person's list. We'll take a break, talk about those 5. Then we'll go through the top 5 movies on their list, take a break, talk about those, and then we'll move on to the next person, doing the whole process again. The difference between our favorite movies and the anticipated is for favorite movies, we add in surprises and disappointments. So at the end of someone's list, after we're done talking about the top 5, we'll come back to them quickly. They'll run through a couple of surprises and disappointments from the year. So we'll see. We're also working on the assumption that people listening have not seen all of these movies, so our discussions will be spoiler-free. Whenever we cover our favorite movies of the year, I like to think that people listen to find some recommendations from us for movies that they haven't seen yet. So if that's the case, we don't want to be the ones to ruin the movie for you. So we will try to keep as best as we can everything spoiler free without getting into too many plot specifics. But all right, so we're gonna jump right in and get to it. So without further ado, we're gonna move to the lists, and we have decided to start with Mike for this one. So Mike, kick us off whenever you are ready.
I start with honorable mentions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this year, honorable mentions. I anticipate at least one of these showing up on everybody else. Well, not everybody, but on other lists. And that's Super Mario Brothers. Had a lot of fun with that. The Marvels and Evil Dead Rise would be the 3 I would put there as honorable mentions because, man, the top 10 list this year was kind of stacked, I feel like. And this year was actually really kind of packed in with some good stuff.
So, Mike, not to interrupt you, but I believe, and I don't remember when you mentioned it, but I feel like at some point during the last year, we were recording something, and you had, I can't remember if we used it for a cold open or if it was in the actual episode, but I remember you talking about you had something at the time, I feel like locked in for your number 1 or close to your top 5 somewhere, and you were telling us it was going to be very surprising or unexpected, whatever your number, like near the top of your list was. Is that correct? Am I making that up?
I did say that, yes.
Is it still on track for that, or did something dethrone it?
My top 3, I could honestly interchange as all possible number 1s.
So is one of those is one of those 3 the one you had mentioned you teased earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still looking at the list, and I'm not sure like the list that I wrote down is actually going to be, by the time I get there after deciphering everything, any one of those top 3 could end up at number 1. I feel like it's 1, 1A, and 1B. So
yeah, I'm just curious if we can figure out what one feels surprising, or if you're gonna have to tell us which one that is.
That's good because that was a really long cliffhanger.
Well,
That's the long game.
Yeah, I'm over here in suspense for 4 months.
8 months.
I brought it up just after I had seen one of these. So I'll let you guys, when we get there, figure out which one.
So it's definitely something that wasn't more recent. So it's got to be earlier in the year somewhere.
Well, I mean, this was months ago that we talked about it.
Right.
So
yeah.
obviously had to be in that case.
So if you know your release schedules, maybe we'll be able to figure out which one it is.
What a way to set the table. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, yeah, I mean, now we got to drag it out a little bit, right? You know? So I'll say it as I go here. My number 10 is also on my surprises. Just managed to catch this recently on HBO Max when it finally hit there, and when I saw that it was happening, I never thought in a million years that I would even enjoy this in the slightest. And that's Barbie at number 10. Didn't think I was going to enjoy that movie. Didn't think it was going to have as much to actually say as it did. Was very pleased with that. And paired perfectly with that, today I just watched Oppenheimer, and it is number 9 for me.
Barbenheimer makes the list.
It's where it fit in. It just there's not really a whole lot of spoilers with Oppenheimer because it's a historical movie, It was not what I expected it to be, though. It was much deeper than just a simple biopic. Another one that I didn't really put it on my surprises because I didn't have any preconceived notions about whether this was going to be any good. At number 8 is Air, the Amazon movie featuring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon about the rise of the Air Jordan. If you're into, I guess, marketing or anything like that, that movie is just gold for that kind of stuff. Even Amy, that's what Amy does, and Amy loved that movie. She does not give a shit about basketball or sneakers or anything, but it was such a fun marketing movie to watch. Number 7 surprises me that it's not higher, and that speaks to how good this year is, and that is Spider-Verse 2. It's a good year, man. When you see what else is above it, it's, it makes sense. Was it as good as the first one? I don't personally think so. But that's like splitting hairs between scoring 95% and 100% on your test. Like, they're both fantastic. So, yeah. And number 6 is John Wick 4. I don't believe this one. Did this have a subtitle?
No,
I don't think,
because
I
it
think
was like chapter 4. Was it chapter 4 or just 4?
I think it was chapter 4 because I think the third one was like Parabellum or something like that, and then it seemed weird that they subtitled the third but not the 4. I don't know.
It is chapter 4. Yeah.
John Wick for life.
Oh boy. No, you're supposed to do that on the third one according to the Bad Boys.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that. That's stupid. I love that movie, but it's still stupid.
But yeah, that's my 10 to 6.
I really wanted to see Air. I didn't get a chance to see it. I did binge 5 movies in 3 days, but Air was on the outside.
That's the only reason I'm here. I made 5 movies in 3 days.
Hey, I had 18 movies watched before that, so I just added to the pool.
Okay.
I just added to the pool.
It's a good sample.
Yeah. And just the cast in itself, I think, it lends to being a good movie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think Matt Damon has really kind of held steady on his quality throughout his career, and he's still just as entertaining to watch in whatever he takes on, which is surprising because he plays Matt Damon for the most part in a lot of these movies, but it still works, whether he's an astronaut in The Martian or he's a marketing guy here or a general in Oppenheimer. It all works. I don't know how he manages to do it, but he does.
Yeah, I really liked Air as well. I think that was one I actually went and saw in the theater when it came out.
I did. I thought that was an Amazon exclusive thing. I didn't realize
it was on Amazon, but I think it had a limited run in theaters. They have to do that for the award season stuff if they want to get nominated. So I think it went in theaters for a little bit and then went to Amazon. But yeah, I did really like the one. It didn't make my list, but it was one that I definitely enjoyed.
Yeah, I honestly watched it just because it was something to watch, and it was like, oh wow, this is actually good.
Yeah.
And it Ben Affleck's portrayal of Phil Knight is something else, man. It's realizing that he's trying to hit that as close to home as he can, and that Phil Knight really was just that weird.
Yeah. Well, I think Matt Damon plays somebody from this area, right? Isn't that the guy from here? I can't remember his name or where exactly he's from, but I'm pretty sure he's local.
Is he?
I'm almost positive. Now I got to look it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I do not recall any of that information.
All right, talk amongst yourselves. Let me do some research here.
But Barbie, honestly, normally I don't even like musical type movies. Obviously, I'm not really into Barbie at all.
Why is that obvious?
I mean, you can see the fish mounted on the wall in the background. There's not pink in sight anywhere in here. I mean, it lends to itself. But I did not expect the movie to have depth. I expected it to be made more for kids than adults, and I feel like it was actually made kind of in between, where there's a lot of stuff for kids and there's a lot of themes that kids aren't going to get that adults are going to appreciate. And much like a lot of more recent like Pixar movies, they handled that balance very well there, I think. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anything about it and say more, but yeah, they did good.
I started back to my part-time work at the movie theater this past summer on like the Monday or Tuesday after Barbie opened.
Oh,
so the next
yeah.
month was insane. I picked like literally the busiest week possible of the year to start working at a movie exhibition place, because that was Barbenheimer weekend. So I think your point is very poignant, that there were a lot of moms bringing gaggles of little girls to see Barbie, and they look one way going in, and as they exit, it's kind of like a flip-flopped result of what you'd expect. I think a lot of the kids had a like, what the hell did I just see kind of look about them, and the parents were like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah.
Look about them for their respective reasons. Yeah, I agree with you. Is it the word I've used ever since we walked out was, if nothing else, it's provocative, and I don't think it's provocative just for the sake of being so. It also had a focus.
Yeah, and like again, avoiding spoilers, I could say Amy and I discussed some of the major plot points after having watched it, and kind of having her like female perspective on it, and discussing like, was this contradictory? Did this make sense? Did it? And working out like everything that really happened and the motivations for it. I think if I was going to critique it in one way, I'd say that for a younger audience, it maybe needed to be a bit more clear, or you know what I mean, with the points and everything it wanted to make and all that, because it like some of the things I think it was trying to say were hard to interpret even as an adult, to get down like the exact motivations of characters and reasons for the plot going the way it did.
One of the things I really liked about the movie is it could be as deep as you wanted to take it, and also as shallow as you wanted to take it, which I feel like the shallow lends to like the younger crowd, and then like the adults can sort of take the really deeper symbolic meaning from it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've not heard anybody say it like that in the last 6 months. That was exactly on the money.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, I watched Oppenheimer today as the counterpoint for Barbie when they came out. I remember going to the theater when everybody was going to see those two, and I don't like going into full crowded theaters. So we were actually, I believe, seeing Evil Dead Rise when everybody was going into Barbie. Very stark contrast between those movies. But Oppenheimer, I finally just watched it. It's a 3-hour sit, which you do notice, but you don't mind so much. And I guess like what I had said to Josh is I didn't expect them to focus as much on a political drama. I was expecting more of like a following the scientist's life kind of thing, more as opposed to picking up the story when he's already well into his career. I was expecting something like following him from a child to adult and culminating, you know.
I did. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, I guess, you know, culminating with the atomic bomb isn't really a spoiler with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So I'm determining that in my head as I speak, and I'm like, it's history. It's not a spoiler. You should have learned this in school. But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Oppenheimer I really liked as well. The length, yeah, I think you feel it. There's a little bit I think at the beginning that is jarring, and I think maybe on purpose. Like it took me a bit to get a sense of where they were going and how because it kind of the timeline of it kind of jumps around. It's not just a linear story. It takes a little bit to get your footing under you. I feel like when you're watching it to figure out where they're going with it and whether it's past, present, like what part of the story you're sort of in. But once you kind of get past that first like 20 minutes, I think you're in for the ride, and it's actually really good.
And I will say, I think they did actually a really good job in how they were jumping around and letting you know which timeline you were in. For me, it was just cueing off of Robert Downey Jr.'s character's hair. You know, like later in life, he's more bald, and you know, early he has more and more hair depending on what time frame we're in.
Yeah,
and I felt like that actually helped. It was a subtle thing, but I feel like there was a lot of help there being done, just by that little notation.
And I will say, seeing that movie in the theater, like there's certain moments with the sound design specifically that it's like, this is fucking fantastic in the theater. Like I wanted to go back and try to see it in IMAX or something. I only ended up getting to see it once, so I never got a chance to go back for IMAX or anything like that. But
it is back at AMC this weekend.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'll get to
checked. But... I just checked the movie times. It's in IMAX, at least at the Waterfront this weekend.
Shit. See, because there's other movies I want to catch up on this year that I didn't get to, that I was hoping to get to before the list, and I'm not going to. So I was trying to see if I could get to them this weekend. But
yeah, I would both echo Brian, but disagree a little bit with Mike on the point that I did see this in an IMAX theater, and I don't think the 3 hours felt like it at all. It by no means felt short. It felt like a 2-hour movie. When you're talking about a 3-hour movie, losing a third of it in terms of your time perception is significant.
Especially
I think
given
maybe
the content matter.
Oh yeah. I think maybe the avenue, the location had a lot to do with that. Maybe in your case, we sat through it, and I almost wanted to go right back. I absolutely loved this.
Before we kind of move on to your top 5, Mike, I don't think we really talked about Spider-Verse or John Wick, so I don't know if there's anything you want to chime in for those two.
I figure I know Spider-Verse is going to come up for at least you, so okay. I'll let you do the bulk of the talking. I'm sure you have more to say about it than I do.
I mean, maybe a little bit. I think I'm just a little bit... I'm curious to see what ends up in your top 5, because I'm a little bit surprised it's maybe that low on your list.
In John Wick 4, I don't know if that'll appear or not, so that I'll say, man... They just did it again. That, you know what I mean? They just keep doing it again. And you think like, boy, this is going to get old at some point. Nope. No, it doesn't. It's still good.
The fucking steps in the third act is like, how long is this going to go on? And then it gets to the point where it's just kind of funny, but they just keep going.
Yeah. I really need to catch up to that series. I've only seen one, so.
Oh, okay.
There's a never seen that for you.
Yes.
Donnie Yen. Man, that guy is just fun to watch do stuff
Donnie
like
Yen's
this.
in it?
Yeah, Donnie Yen is.
Oh, Donnie Yen's awesome. I love Donnie Yen.
And again, I won't spoil anything about who he is or what he's doing, but Donnie Yen is amazing in this movie as always. The one fight was amazing and hilarious at the same time. You guys know what I'm talking about, but you'll have to watch it to find out.
Is that the one with Fat Ben Affleck?
Yeah, I don't know who actually was in the suit, but yes.
He just every time I can't look at.
That's
him
what he's been come to
Ben
be known.
Yeah, that's the fight. Yes, you'll know it when you see it because it's amazing and hilarious at the same time. And yeah, it sets up more stuff to happen, of course, because there's more money to be made by Keanu playing John Wick. So we're gonna get more.
It's funny to me that this one was sort of billed as like, this is we're wrapping up the franchise with this one. And then as soon as it came out and made money, the studio execs are like, well, maybe we might do some more. We'll see. I mean, at the very least, we talked about it on the anticipated, but Ballerina's coming. So like the world kind of continues in that spinoff with Ana de Armas. So we'll see how much crossover there is there. And if that's enough for them to keep the franchise kind of going, or if they're actually going to need Keanu to come back and do some more. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yep. But all right, let's move on to my top 5 here. And I'll hit 5 and 4 pretty quick since I'm still tossing on the top 3.
Oh, wait, Mike, time out real quick. Because I did look it up and then I forgot to chime in when we were talking about Sonny Vaccaro, the guy that Matt Damon plays, is from Trafford, Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Damn, that's pretty local.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, continue.
I mean, for you guys, that's very local, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so number 5, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Fun from start to finish. Another solid entry. Can't wait for Part 2. 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. I believe that was my number 1 most anticipated, and none of my top 3 were on that anticipated list. But yeah, let's just move into those. You know what? 3, we're just gonna go ahead and put Dungeons and Dragons. Holy shit, that was amazing. Just so much fun start to finish. They hit so many things. You can see like dice rolls happening in real time between different characters on screen. Amazing. Number 2, we're going to go with Godzilla -1 here.
I thought for sure this was going to be your number 1.
Well, to be fair, I did give this a 10 out of 10 when we were reviewing it. And I would also give Dungeons & Dragons a 10 had we reviewed it.
Okay.
And let's just say a 10.5 for number 1. But yeah, Godzilla -1, I don't know if they've still extended its theater run yet or not. I don't know if like it's still able to be seen in theaters. If it is, get out there and see it.
Yeah, that is one I actually want to try to get to this weekend. I saw it still playing at the waterfront. I'm hoping to get out there this weekend.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
So Japan just released recently a black and white in theaters of that movie. So I'm hoping that drifts over to be shown in black and white here.
I will go again if it comes in black and white for sure.
Same. Yep.
At the very least, maybe that'll be like a special edition Blu-ray or 4K release that'll be included there.
Yeah, that would be awesome too.
Yeah, honestly, I had no idea this movie was happening. So I don't know that qualifies it as a surprise. I put it on my surprises. I don't know if that qualifies as a surprise because not knowing that it was happening is the surprise. It being good, I kind of expected. Yeah, like I was expecting it to be good going into the theater because it looked good and it was coming, off the heels of the last Godzilla movie out of Japan, being Shin Godzilla, which was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And if you enjoy Godzilla -1, you should absolutely watch Shin Godzilla because
100%.
It's the same kind of idea about, the monster and how they're handling it. So yeah, if it's out there, go see it. We'll talk more after I finish the list here. But we're coming to number 1. You've heard the rest of my list. Do you have any guesses? Seemed like you wanted to have guesses at this, so I'm giving the pause if you do.
The only thing that's not on your list that I'm just kind of actually looking at my list, like what might make it. My only guess would be the Ninja Turtles movie.
Any other guesses?
Cocaine Bear.
Oh, is that this year?
Yeah. It's not, Bloodshot was not this year, so
Bloodshot. Fuck that movie.
Nothing? All right.
Reveals, sir.
Brian hit it on the head there.
Oh, nice.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Holy shit, I did not expect this to be as good as it was. And as soon as I saw it, I have probably watched that movie 6 to 10 times. Just by throwing it on and being like, yep, this is going to be amazing.
And this was was this a March or April release? Was it earlier in the year? Is this the one you were teasing us with before?
Yes, this is the one I was teasing with. But I don't think it was March or April. I feel like it was.
Oh, that was August.
August
it was August.
At least.
Yeah,
August.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't say enough about how much I love what they did with the Turtles in this iteration. And getting a Turtles movie put together around a villain that's not Shredder was such a welcome experience, and they did it so damn well for that. And just hitting the different personalities of the Turtles, having them voiced by actual teenagers, I think that played a big part in how believable it was, because the last time we had Johnny Knoxville as fucking Leonardo, and it was I don't know what they were thinking with that.
They fixed it for Out of the Shadows, but that first one by Michael Bay, that still makes me mad.
Yeah. And Jackie Chan as Splinter was fantastic. Their take on April was fantastic. Yeah, just top to bottom, I don't think they could have improved what they did there.
Yeah, that whole voice cast is really good.
It was excellent. And so without spoiling anything, one of my favorite sequences, there's a, let's call it, montage set to a song that takes, place at one point, and it was unexpected that they were going to do that, and it worked. I don't understand how. I
feel like I want to name the song sense. Because fun fact,
there was a couple montages to songs.
Yeah, and the whole song selection in that movie is also awesome. But
I have another factoid about that for you after. Go ahead.
My sister has been texting me the last couple of days because apparently my 6-year-old and 3-year-old niece have just discovered the Ninja Turtles, and they have been watching this movie on repeat for the last 2 days. So
she's now had to buy a Blackstreet album, is what you're gonna
do. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they'd recognize the song or anything. Well, maybe they wouldn't know it now from the movie, but I had only seen this in the theaters once. I wanted to go back. I never did. I actually literally watched it tonight before we recorded again because, one, my sister's been texting me about them watching it, and two, I was like, I need to get another round in and see where this falls on my list. But yeah, I wanted to make it a point that Blackstreet section of the movie is hands down my favorite part of that movie. I remember that sticking with me. Seeing the movie the first time, it stuck out even more the second time. The way that shot, edited, transitions, everything is just off. It's chef's kiss type of thing. Like, it's great.
In the way that they start the scene with the start of the song, and they play this out through the entire song. They don't skip around the song or do anything. They play the whole song and let this, without spoiling anything, the action sequence that takes place during that just happen. And the other one specifically was also good. They do a similar thing with a car chase scene, and also works incredibly well with the song choice there, which I don't remember the name of that song, but it worked very well.
It's What's Going On, right? Isn't that the...
Yeah, that's the name.
My favorite part about that movie was the animation style. I just got a kick. I got a kick out of everything they did. Was just so vivid and different. It was so like 2D but 3D and sort of like it mishmashed all these styles together that I thought was really cool and made it sort of look like
I so badly want to insert and say it, but I don't want to spoil anything. So. But little factoid I had for you on the music: the non-licensed music, the original score for this movie, was done by none other than Trent Reznor. And if we're talking local again, there you go. There's another Western Pennsylvania boy doing this, and a very well-known one at that.
Yeah.
So this was a movie that opened... real quick, this was a movie, on that note, this was a movie that opened after I went back to work, and so I heard the closing credit music quite often and frequently. And yeah, so then I also early on caught that they were the composers. If you know that, I know, to be fair, I didn't see this, and I didn't really catch any of the scenes along the way. But if you just know that Trent Reznor and Atticus is his partner, I think. If you know that they did the soundtrack and you listen to just the music over the end credits, makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yep, that's them.
Especially after watching it again today, that's what I sort of walked away with. It was like, man, I need to actually listen to like the original soundtrack for this movie, which I haven't done, like the score and stuff. I haven't listened to that.
It's very good. If you take a little time out, it's worth the listen.
Yeah, I got to get around to that for sure.
But other things on my list, Dungeons and Dragons. So here's the thing. I had high hopes for this movie when I first had heard about it, but I was very skeptical because it's so easy to screw it up off the top.
They did screw it up. What was it? Late 90s.
Oh, the Jeremy Irons thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that they didn't screw it up. I'm so glad that they did what they did with it, and I just want more of it. I just want them to keep making, whether it's these characters or not, I just make another movie. You know what I mean? Like,
I heard it's a go from, I think, I don't know if it's confirmed, but it's definitely Chris Pine said that he's definitely up for making a new one, but I think the studio is saying like the amount of money they're going to put toward it will have to be much decreased.
I was gonna say I don't think it made
Scaled
that
back.
much at the box office, or at least not enough to justify like making a Big Bang sequel.
it doesn't need it though. That I think that's part of the great thing that they could do. They could reduce a little bit of the expenditure, I think, and still come out very, very well.
The actors portrayed very vivid characters, I thought, and they had a full enough story where the actors and the story and the characters, I think, can really carry the movie, and that would eliminate a lot of the, I don't know, financial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
I agree. They could scale back on the reliance on big digital set pieces and
Yeah.
computer animation stuff and whatnot. I thought the same thing. My only 2 cents for really the whole top half of your list, Mike, is on Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm sure we'll all talk about several of these others as well. Is I wanted, not that I didn't like it, and not that I wanted to like it more, but I think it was mostly because I feel like I saw so much of the movie in previews
Oh.
that a lot of the charm and some of the like, oh, which way is the story going to go? Like, I feel like I saw a lot of it. So there wasn't a whole, there wasn't much that once I was there that like I already didn't know, or that I got to like experience the charm of as it played out. I could like, it's utterly watchable. It's a great popcorn movie. I know it's been on, I think, Prime for a little bit now, so like we'll definitely throw this on again in the future. I know we will. But yeah, unfortunately for me, it didn't have as much of an impact. I think because of those things. I'm very glad it still did for others, because I really, it probably deserves that, and that's where it, what it earned. But yeah, unfortunately, that was my experience.
It's one of those ones I think that was, reviewed pretty well. It seemed like it was getting good word of mouth, but still nobody went to see it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
I'm
to be
looking
fair,
at
I
now,
didn't see it in the theater either.
because I'm looking at it
waited to
now.
watch it at home.
The internet's telling me it had a $150 million budget, and it ended $208 million worldwide,
Wow.
which is
That's
not
surprising.
enough for them to be like, yes, sequel. Like,
And I feel like D&D is a little niche too.
right,
yeah,
and I think they
D&D.
were trying to get more mainstream, quote unquote normal people, with like Chris Pine headlining it and trying to get that. I'm trying to remember too, if this came out in March, was the writer strike and stuff still going on then? Did that start by then, or was it later in the year that started?
I feel like it was later.
I feel like it
think it was
was
later.
but
Okay, I was just trying to think if they had enough
hard to
people,
track
if they
that.
were able to promote the movie themselves, like if they could parade Chris Pine out there to be like, hey, go see my movie. But that early in the year, that maybe they were able to do that still. So either way, I don't know what happened that it didn't do well enough. I can't remember if there's anything else around that came out that time of year that maybe took away from that, or Andy, like, it's just like you said, it's just that niche, and that niche saw it, and that was it. Didn't hit anybody else. I feel
'Cause
like
I had.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I had high expectations like Mike did, but I also remember the other movies.
Yeah,
So it's like, well, this could go very poorly.
like,
yeah,
I feel like
it doesn't have a really good name as a movie franchise. Like
Right.
It,
Right.
I feel like it's one that should have like a cult following and should sort of spread by word of mouth. So I feel like it's a movie that people will look back on and be like, yeah, you know what, I did like that one. But then they're gonna wonder, why did it get a sequel? Oh, because no one went and saw it when it was in theaters. That's why.
I think if it does enough on streaming services that it'll get a sequel, and I think then they'll see better numbers once people have seen it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people
Hopefully.
didn't go to the theater, and you get a chance to see it at home, and then you say, oh shit, this is good. When they announce a new one, you're just excited because you actually saw something that was good. But
Yeah, because I feel like I remember it being like marketed as coming to Paramount pretty quickly. Like, I think it was on Paramount Plus pretty quick.
yeah, and they could have marketed it better, let's say. Like I personally, I was less encouraged to watch it by their marketing, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like the stuff they put in trailers, all that, I feel like they did a disservice to it. Compared
Trailers
to how
are
good
an
it
art.
was.
Yeah,
Not wrong about that.
Yeah, not everybody understands that. There's a really good way to market your movie and not give the whole fucking movie away.
Yeah, Terminator. What was that Terminator movie?
Oh, Genesis.
Still the benchmark?
Genesis.
Genesis or whatever the fuck they called it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would
I
definitely
blame studio
say
people for that, but whatever.
make sure you watch this one. Don't miss it. It's, to me, again, I had a 10 out of 10's worth of fun with it, and it was good.
Nice.
So now I guess I do disappointments and
Yeah,
surprises.
go through your surprises. Yeah, surprise and disappointment. I can't talk. Surprise and disappointments.
Already talked about all three of my surprises. That's the Mario Brothers, Barbie, and I guess Godzilla -1, since it surprised me with its existence.
Yeah.
And
That
as
tracks,
far
yeah.
as disappointments go, we're gonna have the worst movie, I think, in the Fast franchise popping up here with Fast X. I think they hit a new low for me with this
Josh,
one.
right? Would you agree? You saw that too, right?
And by low, you mean they went so high.
No, that's 9.
Whatever, I haven't seen any.
You haven't seen the recent ones.
this-
Don't say you haven't seen any of them. We
this the
force-fed
one
some
with-
of those to you.
That's true. That's fine. That's fine.
Is this the one with Aquaman?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And my other disappointment, I've been shocked to see that it has been so well received, because I could not have felt like it was more poorly put together. Was Five Nights at Freddy's. I've played the games, watched the movie, and said, "Well, this is bad." And
I didn't see it, but it looked to me like it was a poor man's Willy's Wonderland.
I thought Willy's Wonderland was basically ripping off Five Nights at Freddy's.
oh, it was.
It's interesting that he puts it like that because it kind of went the other way. Like they stripped so much out of the idea of Five Nights at Freddy's that like Willy's Wonderland, there's barely anything. There's like a guy that takes Nicolas Cage to the place. Then the whole rest of the movie is Nicolas Cage at that place with the things.
Yeah.
It's so like bare bones, but I get exactly what you mean by that.
And it
Andy,
still manages to be a way better movie than Five Nights at Freddy's. In my opinion, it's still so much more fun. I don't know. They tried to put in a whole storyline that just made me roll my eyes the whole time. And
see, I was actually, as someone who didn't come from the game background, I was happy that they gave it a context for it to exist in, but I do agree that it felt like not a very strong execution of all the parts that came together.
yeah, and I think maybe I had really high hopes for it because I really did enjoy the games, and Willy's Wonderland was so damn good, and then I don't know, it just fell completely flat for me. But those are my only two
We
disappointments.
also-
I don't have a third.
Okay.
It also could have been that in our screening, there were like, I don't know how old they were, 14, 15, 16. There were some kids, a small group, like 3 of them, a couple rows behind us in a not huge room that talked loudly, audibly, kind of to each other, also sometimes like to each other, but at the movie for like the first half of it until I literally stood up from my seat, turned around and said, "Whoever is talking, will you please shut up?"
And that's
So
why I've
it
seen
could
so
have
many
been
of these movies
marred
at
by
home
that.
these days, is because it's just been such a bad theater experience in the past year and a half or so for me. Every time I go, it seems like there's a rude asshole somewhere in the theater, and
It's getting more difficult, in my opinion.
so
I don't know if I'm just getting more curmudgeonly, but
it's both. It's both. We're getting older, and we're
hey,
getting less willing to deal with other people's bullshit. but also I feel like people are starting to like, because you see it all the time. I see a parent that doesn't correct the child that's talking loudly during the movie. That's the child that grows up to talk loudly during the movie as an adult.
I also
I don't
feel
know,
like maybe I'm in the minority, but I feel like my theater experience hasn't really been like, I feel like I see a lot of movies in the theater, and I don't have those type of at least as often as maybe you guys do. But I think, Mike, to your point, the other thing that I'm just now thinking of is now that movies are so readily available at home, this is the kind of way people act at home when they watch a movie. I think the theater etiquette part of it's probably gone because people are so used to just consuming this stuff at home. They just do the same shit when they go to the theater.
Yep. And
there's
it's
definitely a
unfortunate,
bleeding between the two that's happening.
I love the theater experience when you have a good crowd. When you have a bad crowd, I don't I feel like there's nothing I hate more in public.
It quasi ruins the movie, in my opinion. My experience is tainted.
It's one of those things where I feel like I never want to stay up late anymore. Like I'm one of those. Maybe it's just with the work schedule. It's like by 9:30 I want to be in bed. But like the whole midnight premiere theater experience, like that's some of my best memories of a theater is seeing a movie at midnight when it comes out. Because I mean, the people that want to be there, that want to stay up for that late to see a movie for the first time, are the people that are really fucking into that thing, and it's been some of the best crowds I've ever seen movies with.
Well, yeah, I think that's how you get a good crowd. You get people that are very invested in the content, and they're all kind of gonna pay attention as opposed to do their own thing or talk or ruin the experience for others, and that's good. But I don't know. My own personal experiences this year are very negative in theaters for the most part.
Well, here's to a new beginning with 2024. Hopefully it improves.
I hope so.
All right, Josh, you're next on the list. So whenever you're ready, we'll roll through your honorable mentions and get to your list.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to repeat one of Mike's honorable mentions. But before that, I'm going to start with, I believe this was an Amazon Prime original movie called Totally Killer. I think Mike and I had talked about it when one of us became aware of it, like just a few days before its release, and we both were like very happy about this. It looked so fun. Mike, how did you describe it to me? You boiled it down real simple. I think you said it's like Scream meets Back to the Future.
Yeah. Now I remembered.
Yeah. Okay.
You were asking me to recall something, and I was a deer in headlights there. Like, I don't fucking know what I said.
This was totally fun. I don't have her name in front of me. Kiernan Shipka, Sabrina from the most recent Sabrina Netflix, is your lead mainly in it. But I really dug it. It was a fun go. And then my other honorable mention is The Marvels. I do wish this had gone higher. Not that I didn't enjoy this at all. This was actually a nice breath of fresh air. I think just after 4.5 years of waiting for a sequel, and as we've talked at length before, sort of mixed feelings about the current trajectory, the last few years of the MCU storylines and whatnot. I think this in and of itself on an island is a fine movie. It works, but just not quite enough to hit its normal MCU spots for like top 5. But I had a good time with it. All right, cracking into the top 10 itself. I have a feeling, I don't know, just knowing you guys, you might, I don't know if you'll be surprised by what I selected or not, but here we go. The horror representation in the top 10 this year goes to Thanksgiving at number 10. As Mike and I have talked on some of our past Horror Jamboree episodes, this was a movie that was, I think, 16 years in the making. It started as a fake trailer that was intentionally made during a joint movie between Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. That fake trailer was made by Eli Roth at the time, and then all these years later, it finally got made. And honestly, I actually felt it was pretty good as a standalone kind of horror flick. It wasn't bad. So I'm just happy that we have it. Kicking off to number 9, that's where John Wick Chapter 4 falls for me. I only got a chance to see this once. Well, I shouldn't say that. I only made time to see it once. I liked it a lot at the time, just didn't get back to it, and I had kind of crammed a lot into the last couple of weeks, and so I kind of have a recency problem as well. Just other things are more fresh in my mind, but I really enjoyed this. Number 8 for me goes to the Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This was high on my anticipation list. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from it, though. I really dug it. I did read the book when it came out, but it's been a few years since its release, and I intentionally did not reread it before seeing the movie because I didn't want any other preconceptions to jar it. I just wanted to see what they presented. The lead, the co-leads really, the actress and the actor are, I think, really solid and carry the story, and they fit a lot into these. If you're used to, the Hunger Games where people get picked and they go to fight in the arena and there's sort of some stuff happening during that time, yeah, that happens, but there's a lot before and after that into this, and I really liked how they executed it. I'm looking forward to this coming out on DVD to be able to watch again. Moving on to number 7. I don't know if this is going to appear on anybody else's. It might have got some shit in terms of critics or whatnot, but I actually really liked Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I thought it was fairly solid. I didn't think there was a lot of problems to poke in it. There might have been some areas to strengthen it, per se, but I thought it did a pretty good job. For whatever was like all the press leading up to it, and of course the things reported about, I guess, supposedly Jason Momoa's behavior on set and the Amber Heard of it all, like all those things that kind of came with it. The film itself, I thought was, like I said, solid and just enjoyable. And again, maybe it's at number 7 as opposed to number 10 or an honorable mention because I saw it just so recently since it was a December movie, but there's that. And then number 6, this is where Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 hits for me. Again, one that I only got a chance to see one time. I never got around to it because this was one that, or I never got around to it again because at like 2 hours and 45 minutes, this was one that I just didn't have the time commitment that I could think of to rewatch something that I had just seen this summer. But I really enjoyed the hell out of it as well. I think that was also quite high on my anticipation list, like top 3 maybe. So, yeah, that's the first half. Discuss.
I'm disappointed in Aquaman. I saw it. I had a very low bar going in. I don't even know if it hit that bar. I just walked out like, what the I don't know. That was one I was hoping was going to be better than what I expected because I didn't expect a lot from it. But by the time it was over, I felt like I already forgot what I watched, and I don't know. To me, it felt like whatever this DCEU they were trying to do, like what was connected, what wasn't, where they were going, if anything was going to carry over. I don't know. It just felt like it went on a whimper. Like this year with DC movies, we had 4 of them. We had Shazam, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and The Flash. And I will flat out tell you, I liked Shazam and Blue Beetle much more than I liked the other 2.
I can't speak to that because I've only seen The Flash. So, the Aquaman movie, I had such low expectations that I didn't go to the theater yet to see it.
Yeah, I was kind of morbidly curious to see how many lines Amber Heard actually had in the movie. And for the first half, she like doesn't speak or has like 2 lines. She ends up speaking more as the movie goes on, but I was really curious how much they cut her down because that's all I remember reading about.
I mean, on that note, I will say I saw Blue Beetle as well in theaters. It was better than I expected it to be. It didn't move the needle, didn't change the world, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. And as I understand, that character, like supposedly like by that actor and whatnot, is carrying on into James Gunn's world.
So is he going to be the only one that survives the purge?
Could be. And as far as Shazam's probably one that I need to watch again. I remember I think because I knew that they were basically like they had committed to making a sequel and they were so far into it that they were going to finish it, but there wasn't really much heart from the studio necessarily. Not from the movie itself. The characters and the actors in that movie are all heart, and those stories are centered around that, and it's really good for that reason. But I feel like you could kind of tell that by that point somebody had already realized that we don't quite give a shit about this anymore, and so because it had no consequence and wasn't going to carry anywhere else, it just didn't leave like a huge lasting impression.
Yeah.
But
I think I feel like they all got between some of the DC movies, I feel like they all got a bad rap this year. Like the Flash was the one that was being marketed and promoted as like, this is the best the DC has to offer, and this is gonna blow your mind, the best superhero movie in years, blah blah blah. It did not hit that bar, and I don't know if I just went into that with that kind of expectation, and that was what kind of killed it for me. But I think Shazam, I wanted to like it, and I think it's much better than what maybe the critics are shitting on it for. And I think that might be more because, I think Zach Levi has, as much as I like the guy, has said some stupid stuff in the press. And I still think Blue Beetle was, I didn't go in with that, like high expectations with that one, but that was, I still think, better than maybe what I expected.
What was nice about Blue Beetle is I don't really know anything about that character.
Yeah,
so it was a nice expose as to, how he came about and what he sort of does.
And as the origin stories go, I mean, it's still kind of cookie cutter, but I still think it's really good. And the whole like family dynamic of that, sort of like, Miss Marvel and Kamala and stuff, putting the family in that movie, I thought was really fun.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
I thought Blue Beetle probably had the most heart out of the 3 DC movies.
I'll give you that. Yes. And now we're talking about movies that are not even on Josh's list.
Any comments about anything I actually mentioned?
I haven't seen Hunger Games yet, so I can't comment on that. And obviously Mission Impossible was pretty high on my list. That was, like you said, it was long, but it kept you engaged from start to finish. And I think when we reviewed it, I said, like, even though it's a part 1, you have a fully fleshed out story in this. It doesn't feel like it would have to be a part 1. It feels like it, obviously being a part 1, there's major threads of the story that have to continue, but they made a whole complete story out of it. And that was one of the things I liked most about it, because lately I feel like we've been ending on some strange points with some of these movies that are meant to be 2-parters.
Yeah, real head scratchers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say again, I think I kind of alluded to this in our review of that, but there's so much meat in Mission Impossible that, to your point, it is self-contained, but there's so much there that you almost could have split that into 2 movies.
Yes.
And they would have still been self-contained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good movie all around. So,
yeah.
And Josh,
do we have any news on part 2? I didn't, like, it's not on any of our 2025 lists, is it? Or our 2024 lists?
Because it got pushed.
Yeah.
Did
it was supposed to be next year. I think with the strikes, it got pushed to 2025.
Gotcha. Okay.
But Josh, to your point about it being pushing 3 hours, like that was one I've only seen that movie once. I wanted to get back to see it. I surprisingly haven't bought it for myself yet, which I need to do because it's out on Blu-ray. But
we were probably going to, but it being a part 1, we know in a few years there will be a Dead Reckoning box set type thing, at least just with them both together, and we'll just get it then.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they put all 8 or whatever together at that point.
Yeah,
they will.
Like,
every single time a new one comes out, they just add it to a box set. But at least those 2 together, we'll just wait for that.
Yeah, but I fully intended to try to get to the theater to see it again. But like you said, with the length of it, I just couldn't find a good opening in like my schedules around that time when it was in theaters to try to get in there and see it. And then it comes out in the middle of summer, so a lot of that stuff just doesn't hang around long enough for you to try to find the time to go back and see it again if you want to. It's like if you don't see it in the first 2 or 3 weeks, it could be gone.
You don't see it, yeah.
Hunger Games I did also see, and I thought that was pretty good. I didn't read the book, so I was going in completely blind. So yeah, I don't know where I'd compare it to like the the OG trilogy for Hunger Games, but as far as like diving into the characters in that in the Songbirds and Snakes movie, I thought they did a pretty good job there.
I agree, and from the writing as well, from the novel, I mean, it's a good adaptation in that the source material is the same thing. It takes place like 64 years before the events of the first Hunger Games that we've seen. So it didn't rely. It was not a story that was written or adapted relying on constant fan service or character threads, story threads. It wasn't completely built upon, hey, you know this thing, it connects to that. You know this other thing, it connects to that that you already know. There's little bits sprinkled that are just like, oh, little throwaways. Like a name is like, you see a name on a plaque or a statue, but it's not important. It's like, it's there, but it doesn't play a part. And I think this does a good job at standing on its own.
I think, yeah, maybe less about the characters connecting, but I liked seeing sort of the evolution of the Hunger Games themselves.
Yes.
Like knowing where we get to with Katniss in those movies and seeing how they're sort of bare bones and starting here and why they're making decisions on how they structure the Hunger Games and why they're doing it the way they are. And even like having like the little drones come in, that seems like for the first time, which is such a big part in the later ones with sponsors and all that stuff. Like just seeing that evolution and the breadcrumbs there, I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if the author, I think this is a world where they could pick little events that they could make some kind of like short mini series on. And I don't know the production costs or where, like what it would require, where it could get picked up. But like, I would love them to make a mini series, like 2-3 episodes that would show Hey Mitch's Hunger Games.
Yeah.
That show Joanna's, something like that. Like sort of these key moments that they've mentioned in the other stories, that you just kind of get to revisit that and see how that episode, if you will, kind of played out. I think that's where they could tap into things. Or just if she decided, like, yeah, pick another moment somewhere in between. So we have the 10th Hunger Games, and with Katniss, we started at 74. Like, you have all that time in between. Like, create a story where you pick some other pivot moment in the 30th, the 44th. You know, just pick a number where there's, you know, a turning point where something significant happens in the evolution, as you said, of how that progresses.
Is this movie supposed to be a one-off, or is it part of a trilogy of books? I don't know that far into it.
No. I mean, if the first book was meant to be the first in another series related to those characters, I haven't heard anything about it, and I think that book came out, oh god, it's got to be at least 2018 by now, or maybe even earlier.
Okay. Anything else, Mike, Andy, for Josh's bottom 5?
No, I think I covered the stuff I'd seen.
Andy, anything to add? Good.
Mission Impossible was an excellent movie. It didn't feel like 2 hours and 45 minutes, but it is. When you look at the time, you still go, man, I have to set aside some time to do that.
Right,
so.
right.
Andy, did you get to that one?
Yeah, I was at the theater with you.
Yeah, remember that was our big joint one, because
that
was the whole.
That's right. Brian, write the time code down. Cut that part out.
Oh no, I can't leave. You know, I only cut the ones
Makes
where
me
I
look
sound
like a
like an
jackass.
asshole.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. I have editing powers for when I look like an idiot, not everybody else. Everyone else continues to look like an idiot.
There's ways you can get them to
Cough,
cut around things.
There's noise.
But, you know, you have to turn into Ian for a little bit and get them to cut around some things.
All right, Josh, go ahead for your top 5, yeah.
All right, so if my bottom 5 upset you for certain reasons, the top 5 is really going to do that.
Uh-oh.
All right, so coming in at number 5, and this would probably be higher if I get a chance to rewatch it, but don't get me wrong, I freaking loved watching this movie, and I loved losing myself in every moment of it. Number 5 for me is Wonka. this was again very high, I think, on my anticipation list, if I remember correctly, and I was pleased at the fact that it wasn't just like an hour and a half to 2 hours or however long it was of look at the fun magical nature of a young Willy Wonka. There was a whole story he was central of in you know, when you see any adaptation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you might get a good amount of screen time with Willy Wonka, but the story is Charlie Bucket's. This was Willy Wonka's story. And he is in the middle of everything else happening around him and to him. And I was pleased at what they did. I just went back to being 6 years old for 2.5 hours, and I loved it. Not disappointed at all. But here's where you guys are going to give me shit. Number four for me is The Flash.
Oh, you son of a...
I gotta go back to even like our initial discussion, our review about this. For me, I think if you can just look at that thing solitarily, I think it's pretty damn good. I think they found a way to tell a Flashpoint type story with other elements pulled in. Were there stumbles along the way? Sure. But I think Andy Muschietti delivered something pretty cool. And just from a creative standpoint, from something not existing to something existing, I think what exists at the end was pretty interesting. And I thought it was pretty creative. So I actually like it quite a bit. Am I completely sad that, given where like all the strings that come along with it, and the DC studios and yada yada yada, could they have kind of continued on that in some way? Yeah, maybe. But if that's it and that's the end, that's fine. I'm not like losing sleep over it.
I mean, I probably would have thrown stuff if it was your number one. So number 4 we'll accept.
Okay, this is probably very much going to surprise people that this is so high on my list. It really surprised me as well. Number 3 for me is Saw X.
Okay.
I would not have considered this necessarily before I saw this, but they, for me, trying to hit the well again for the Saw franchise, they found a way to do it. And it's not really a spoiler. I think this gives you the impression in the trailer. This is a story that revisits John during his Jigsaw years. So they're going back in the timeline and inserting a story between, I believe it's the first 2 movies in the timeline this takes place. And it works for me. They found a way to make it personal without it just being horror porn, which several of those towards the end really ended up being. It was better than Jigsaw, in my opinion. Spiral they tried to be different and do something interesting, but after that, I didn't really care if they were doing anything more with what they presented. I actually I want them to continue. If they figure out ways to find these micro points in time between the first 3 Saw movies and tell these stories, they found a way to make it personal again, where you're kind of rooting for the bad guy in a way. So that's how I felt about it, and I was just surprised at how much. Again, I think just like the creative process, the way that you come up with an idea and see it to execution, you know what you end up with. This might be the biggest jaw drop in years. This will come off as scandalous in the mythos of the show. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Wow. All right.
It was not set in stone even after seeing it. So I saw this 3 times in theaters, and I at least once more after it came home. It was a different type of product and approach to the storytelling that I thought I was prepping myself for, and not that I disliked it, but it was just a little bit different. I liked it quite a lot, and the only reason that it falls to number 2, to be honest, is because Oppenheimer exists. I could not believe when I walked out of that theater what I had just seen. The impact of and to what we said, talking about it being on Mike's list earlier, I think that theater experience really did make the difference in an extremely significant way. In IMAX, with that sound system, with all those people, with that big of a screen, and as you said, this will make me sound like a pretentious asshole, but it is both. Honestly, this is a film. Like, this is a movie that got made. This is a film. Like, from the art of filmmaking, like, Christopher Nolan deserves everything he is awarded for this. Him, his editors, all of it. Because the approach to the story, the angle they took, the way they found their way in to tell you about Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb, everything else that went along with it, same as him. I saw that was out of left field for me. Even like the fact that they wrapped him and the development of the bomb inside of sort of a greater kind of political thriller drama that's also historical nonfiction, and then the way they executed it with the editing and the different tones and the moods and whatnot, just like the back and forth. As I said, that 3 hours did not feel like 3 hours to me. I never blinked if I didn't have to. I don't remember if I intentionally made myself wait to go to the bathroom, but if I had to, I did not get out of my seat. I was raptured the entire time, and a movie has not done that to me in a long, long time. So this was probably an exception. Like, this is a like once every 20 years kind of movie to me. To replicate doing that will take something very special and different again sometime in the future. But Oppenheimer lands at number 1 for me.
Did you see that more than once or only once?
Only once so far. Again, the 3 hours is kind of a constraining thing. But I very, very much want to rewatch it.
Okay.
And I think personally with Oppenheimer, if I was handing out an award for what I thought was the best made movie, absolutely. And I think that maybe there's like a different approach in some ways to how we make our lists, as opposed to, what did I enjoy the most versus what do I think was the, best movie all around. Definitely, changes. But yeah, I would
start
agree.
Looking at lists sort of like a critic instead of a sort of a fan.
Right. And that's, I try to look at it as both, and that makes it difficult. But in terms of the reason why, like, I would put Oppenheimer where I have it at 9, while recognizing that it's almost certainly the best movie that was made this year, is that I doubt that I'll ever watch it again, because I don't need to. It's, it's one of those movies, like, once you've seen it, you've got it. It's a long sit, and it doesn't have replayability for me. Like, okay. It's just, I recognize the work of art that it is and how good that it is and everything that it's doing. But, I mean, it's like, I think I have said the same thing about Logan as a movie, that I have only watched Logan start to finish once. And it's because it's a heavy watch, it's a tough watch, it's, one of those things where it's like, I recognize how good the movie is, but yeah, I'm just not, it's not a popcorn movie, it's not a sit and watch it kind of thing. It's you have to engage yourself to be like ready to sit and pay attention and watch that movie.
That's where I was going to kind of come in. Is heavy is the right word to describe. Like, I feel like you come out of it feeling a little bit depressed just because of the subject matter and implications and stuff like that. And comparable to Logan is kind of the same way. Like, I really enjoyed Logan. Now, granted, I have seen Logan more than once. I've only seen Oppenheimer once. But I do definitely want to sit down and try to watch Oppenheimer again. But to Mike, to your point, I think it is a movie you sort of just have to make sure you're in the mood for. It's not one it's like, well, you know what, I got nothing to do. Oppenheimer, that's the one I want to watch. Like, you got to mentally prepare for this 3-hour journey you're about to go on again.
Yeah, it is funny to make that comparison to Logan. I haven't seen it again for years. I think I saw it twice in theaters, and I don't know that I've seen it since until maybe in the last 6 weeks. I decided to finally watch the noir version, the black and white.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say if you haven't seen that part, that experience, just the black and white, give that a shot once, just to take it in that way. But I totally understand what you're saying about the heaviness, the right mood, and some things are made that way. Some films, some movies that have kind of like the greatest like emotional impact on me in the moment, they might elicit really strong things. I might cry myself into exhaustion, or I might be stimulated, to the point that I can't calm my brain for the rest of the night because it just has me thinking and whatnot. And I can't ever watch it again. I've definitely done that, so I know where you're coming from with that. This one so far, I don't think it's fallen into that crack for me. Brian, if you get really motivated, as you were saying a couple of minutes ago, it is playing in IMAX at noon on Saturday, and I'm actually free, so I might pick that to go.
See, I was already looking at like trying to go see that Godzilla movie at 1:00, I think, on Saturday. So I'll have to see where my schedule lies and what I end up doing. Because I don't think that Godzilla movie is going to stick around in theaters that much longer either.
It's already been in theaters for a pretty long time.
Yeah, it's lasted much longer than probably any Japanese film has in quite a long time.
Like my plan for the weekend is if I can fit in a twofer, I was going to try to do Godzilla and Wonka, because those are the two I wanted to fit in before we did this list, and I didn't get to. So I was trying to get to them this weekend. But
yeah, I mean,
definitely catch things you haven't seen before, and I would say because like award season just started, Oppenheimer might stick around or shoot in and out at various theaters for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I'd say stick with your plan.
Okay.
Wonka was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I feel like I had a bit of a high bar just because of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Tim Burton film as well, and I just, for some reason, it didn't quite reach that to me, but I enjoyed it thoroughly still. Timothée Chalamet was very good in it, and Hugh Grant was also very good in it, although his role was much more suppressed than I expected it to be. But it was a really good movie.
Did you have any word of mouth of Wonka going in, Andy?
No. Well, just Josh saying like, see it.
Okay.
Pretty much.
No one else really said anything to me about it.
I'm just kind of thinking like I've heard positive things just kind of between the internet and mainly Josh.
It's a very enjoyable movie. It really is. It's a fun ride. I feel like it's lacking in a few things, which is why it doesn't quite make my list.
Okay.
What was the other movie I wanted to ask you about? Oh, The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like The Flash has some really quality redeeming moments in it, and one of those being Michael Keaton.
Yes.
That whole, I found myself more interested in what happened, not to give away any spoilers, but what happened when he traveled. I found myself more interested in that than I did like his original story. I was more interested in like the Michael Keaton and the female Kryptonian and all that, more so than I was about him getting back.
That's kind of my point, is I think for a movie about the Flash, by the end of it, I didn't give a shit about the Flash, and I wanted to see more Michael Keaton Batman, and I can't remember her name that was cast as Supergirl, because she's basically on a Supergirl now. Yeah, I think that sounds right. I should look it up, but yeah, I came out liking them better.
Ezra Miller becomes annoying, in my opinion, in this movie, especially
Sasha Calle.
He has
Sasha Calle.
I was close. He has a laugh in it that was near like nails on a chalkboard to me. Just yeah. I don't know. I couldn't get over that, but I felt like there was a lot good things that happen from it.
There are definitely some good moments that I remember and enjoy. But yeah, the meat of it is like I just want to see more Batman and Supergirl and where they go from there.
Yeah, no, I found myself intrigued by that the most. And I don't feel like those are spoilers because I feel like those were in the trailers.
Yeah, they're all over the trailers and posters and stuff.
As far as what I would say is for Wonka, I'm, I guess, in a small percentage of people that has never found that entire world interesting. Like, I've seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and it never grabbed me. It never was something where I was like, I like this movie. I never cared for it. So I had no interest whatsoever in Wonka. And I would say the same about Saw X, as not really having interest in it, just due to the fact of how much garbage they've pumped out in that series that were up to the 10th movie. You know, you had, in my opinion, you had the first Saw movie, A+, and then you had maybe a B- with the second movie, and then it just went straight into a dumpster fire by the time we get to Saw X. So hearing that it's actually good makes me very interested to watch it, because I anticipated it just being more of the same, you know, garbage that they've been throwing out there that's just, you know, gore porn.
Yeah. If we still had to pay regular ticket prices for our movies and we weren't on the subscription, I don't know that we would have gone to the theater for this one. We probably would have waited to get it like Redbox or from the library for free or something. But like I said, I think it found a really redeeming way to make it compelling again.
And that's great to hear, because usually by the time you hit the 10th movie in a horror franchise, I can't think of
Right.
any movie that is on its 10th sequel
Fast and Furious.
as a horror movie. I'm sorry. But also, that counts too,
Jason
because...
X. Jason X is a goddamn masterpiece.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
It's a masterpiece in the way that, like, it's fun but bad and campy, whereas
yeah,
a Saw X, I think, like, legitimately, like, they tried to make a real movie.
Okay. And that again, that is one of the most surprising things I've heard in a long time coming out of movies, because normally they're just punting away with, you know, whatever they can put out there with the franchise name, and they don't care about quality, and it's just the franchise name's going to carry it, so be it. So
yeah. So that is my piece this year, sirs. Thank you for your time.
Do you have any surprises?
Yeah,
or
just say quickly
disappointments?
for surprises,
yes,
disappointments, if you got them.
Yeah, so surprises. I also had Godzilla -1 on mine. Based actually on I didn't get around to listen to the episode yet that you and Ian did, Mike, but you guys were just talking about it so highly that I had like an evening free a couple of weeks ago. I was like, let me go see. I'm sure I won't hate it. I was I was surprised.
wait, you saw that movie and it's not in your top 10? Now I'm disappointed. I wasn't disappointed about The Flash or Saw X or any of that. You saw that movie and you didn't include it in your top 10.
You are just pissing everyone off individually this time.
You're just taking a round. Just.
I don't think I got under Andy's skin quite yet, but maybe I'll criticize something on his in some way. That's what
we'll see what other surprises you got. We'll see.
Yeah. A movie called Hypnotic that I don't remember if I heard of and then forgot about, but I did some work travel in October and I watched it on the plane. It's with Ben Affleck and William Fichtner and Alice Braga. It's pretty cool, and it turns like 4 different times to where you think, oh, this is the type of movie they're making. Then they progress in the plot and they twist, and like, oh, I see, they did a twist like that, so this is the kind of movie they're making. And then it goes again. By the end, you're like, okay, I follow all of that, so you can't predict where you're gonna end up. I'll say that. It's interesting. Check it out. It's called Hypnotic.
I'm just kind of trying to IMDb it. Written and directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, I forgot about that, actually, yeah. I don't know if it was a victim of like the strike and couldn't be promoted, if it was, you know, a victim of COVID. I didn't look at production time, but yeah, I'm glad that I saw it on the plane menu. And then my last one, a little bit more horror representation to call out. A movie that Mike and I also talked about on our Jamboree is called It Lives Inside. This came out in September. I got to catch it on DVD a couple weeks ago. It's a Indian culture spin on what otherwise might be seen as like a supernatural or like demonic type horror thriller. It's an Indian American family, but the sort of culturally different representation and presentation of that kind of idea I found really enjoyable, and then overall it is actually pretty well put together as a horror flick. So there's those. Quickly, my 3 disappointments. And I had really high hopes for all of these. First was Wes Anderson's most recent movie, Asteroid City. I typically really like his stuff. Some of them don't quite hit a high bar. Some of them I hold in like really high esteem. Like Life Aquatic is probably in my like maybe top 10 most like rewatchable movies in my life. I could watch that anytime. This one just had a missing degree, ingredient to it that just didn't really hit for me. The next, several of us talked about this in many different places. The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I liked it, but I wanted it to be a lot more. And I feel like what I got was like 40% of the scale and the depth of what I thought they were going to put together. But I don't regret seeing it. I thought it was okay.
Putting together an entire movie based on the snippet of source material they had, I feel like was not a doomed premise from the start, but not a great place to. It's a cool premise, but not a great place to start from with such a narrow scope.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then the last one, real quick, is, unfortunately to say this, is A Haunting in Venice, the most recent Hercule Poirot adaptation. I remember distinctly the moment that it happened. Like, I had this reaction in real time and knew, like, oh, this is going to be my disappointments. You get to basically the conclude, like, this is a whodunit. We all know the formula. Eventually, there gets to be a point where the person just explains how it was all done and what the explanation is, right? When that point happened and that started up, I thought we were only supposed to be beginning the third act. Like, I was waiting for more of the movie to happen and more story. And I was like, oh, no, that's all this is. Compared to the first 2 adaptations that Kenneth Branagh has done, I just think this really fell short of those marks. And because of the different tone, that this was more of a darker, horror-ish type of tone that the trailer set, and that the movie really does carry through. It just didn't hit where I expected it to, that I've come to think of these, that they can be. So now that's really all my time.
Okay. Andy, you're up.
All right. Honorable mentions. I have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem is an honorable mention. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. Wonka was an honorable mention for me. I also enjoyed that one. And The Flash, merely because of Michael Keaton and all the cool bat stuff. Those were my honorable mentions. I feel like it would have probably made the list if it was actually a Batman movie.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, bottom 5.
Bottom 5. So number 10 for me is number 10 for one reason. Number 10 was Renfield, and that's strictly because of Nicolas Cage. I feel like he was awesome as Dracula in this movie. Number 9 for me, maybe just because of nostalgia, but I thought the movie was okay. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 8 was a surprise for me. It wasn't on my radar. I didn't know it was a thing that was going to exist, but it was actually a Netflix release. Leave the World Behind. It's got Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, Mahershala Ali, Kevin Bacon. Really quite a good movie, I thought. Number 7 is actually a movie that Josh had in his disappointments. I really enjoyed Haunting in Venice. So that's my number 7. And then I think I have this movie in the same place that Mike did, and pretty close to where Josh had it. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is not my number 6.
It was
so
my number 5.
Josh. Yeah, you're off off by 1 with Mike.
Yeah, so pretty close as far as like ratings go there. But those are my bottom 5.
Okay.
Top 10, if that makes any sense.
Yes. And as far as Renfield goes, yeah, the only reason I think to throw that there is Nicolas Cage having fun as Dracula. I mean,
yeah, it was. I enjoyed that aspect of it so much that as soon as I saw it on the list of movies that I had seen, I'm like, that's making the list. And then when I was throwing the list together, I'm like, well, it's gonna have to go at number 10.
Yeah, like it. How can you not have fun with that idea? Just letting him do Nicolas Cage as Dracula. Yeah,
I thought they had some pretty bold action gore sequences in that movie too that weren't like gory but like fun gory. I don't know how to say it, but
body humor.
Yeah. The character of Renfield I thought was funny in the way that he took people down. He was almost like apologetic about it, and I thought that was kind of funny.
That if I could have had like a more extensive honorable mentions list, that absolutely would have been on it. I think there's a lot redeeming for that one, well beyond the Nicolas Cage of it all. I think that's all together really well put together.
Yeah, Awkwafina's even pretty good in it, and she can be on the verge of annoying sometimes. So.
Tell me a little bit about Leave the World Behind, because that's one we didn't get to, and I know
yeah,
we will eventually. But I'm glad you did.
Dive into that.
We watched it actually New Year's Day. No, New Year's Eve, before, in the middle of the ball dropping. Actually, we had like an hour left on the movie. It's actually quite a long movie, 2:45-ish.
Oh wow.
Okay.
It starts off, and you're trying to figure out this movie the entire time, and it does a really good job of the characters establishing like their motives and where they're coming from, and there's this like air of mystery that you have to sort of figure out what's going on. You're figuring out the stuff as the characters are figuring out the stuff, which I thought was really neat. And it surprised me how much I like this movie. Usually Netflix movies, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it's a thing, watch it, done, go. But I'm not usually a Julia Roberts fan, but she was really good in this. Mahershala Ali was also excellent. Ethan Hawke, always good. It's a mystery, and it's quasi apocalyptic, maybe.
Okay.
So I know we're in the process of I'm in the process of putting all these in the list in the spreadsheet, and for anyone that hasn't listened to this before, I try to go through the Rotten Tomatoes ratings for critic and audience, and then by the end of this, I'll tell us who had the best critic and audience, basically average based on their movies. Andy just has the movie with the absolute worst audience score.
So I tried to find out a little bit more information about this movie, and it's based on a book that I didn't know about, and I looked up the ratings of it, and critically, it's rated well.
Critically, it's pretty good. Yeah, the audience score is not great.
Dog shit. It is dog shit, and I didn't understand that because I thought it was a very well made movie with intricate character portrayals. I think it interweaves things pretty well. Jess and I both really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, but you're speaking so highly of it. It's making me wonder why the hell the audience score is that low, and what the hell.
Yeah, I mean, so it has one of those endings where it leaves things into interpretation in your mind. But I feel like they sealed certain parts of the story off where you can make that leap easily, because usually those types of movies don't leave me with a good feeling. But this one, I was like, oh, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. I feel good about it.
Okay.
I think
maybe other people didn't get that leap, but
just on the surface, you have a 2 hour and 45 minute long movie that isn't some kind of blockbuster or something, and the average attention span of your film watcher just doesn't go for that. Like, just that length for your average film watcher. If it's, again, like Oppenheimer or Endgame or a Mission Impossible movie, they tend to latch on a lot better. But something that is a completely new and unique idea of being that long, I think that's going to cause some of the ratings to go down. I guarantee you there's a lot of people that rated that watched the first half and didn't finish it. Because that's just the average person's attention span and the way that they go.
It had our attention, but it does take a while for you to like actually start realizing and understanding what's going on in it. But the characters, like I said, were so good that it didn't bother me. Which is weird because usually it does. So it was a little strange that this actually ended up being a better movie than Renfield and Indiana Jones, in my opinion. So
I was gonna say, Andy, you're the first one to bring up Indiana Jones, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that one.
So I didn't hate the fourth Indiana Jones movie. I just thought it was worse than the other three Indiana Jones movies. And this one is in between the original trilogy and the fourth one, in my opinion. I think it's better than the fourth one, but not as good as the original three, which was about what I was expecting, honestly. I had high expectations for it, and it didn't quite reach them, but I still think it did a lot of things very well. I thoroughly enjoyed the last third of the movie. I thought a lot of that was really cool when some of that, I don't want to have any spoilers, but when some of that stuff happened, I thought that was a really neat thing that they could do, and I didn't at all expect.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I did enjoy Indy. I will say that. I think for me, I don't know. I'm one of those people that doesn't really care for Temple of Doom, so I would probably put.
Yeah, that.
I feel like my ranking is Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Dial of Destiny, maybe Temple of Doom, and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is my probably rank.
That was the question I was going to ask, because I haven't seen it yet. Is it like better or worse than Temple of Doom? Because to me, that's the middle crossroad for the series as a whole. Is like, which side of that does it fall on?
Yeah, Raiders and Last Crusade are by far my two favorites still.
Last Crusade is my favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah,
by a good margin. Raiders of the Lost Ark is also very good. Temple of Doom is good. So I don't know, maybe on par with that, somewhere in there. Like I feel like 3 and 4 you could sort of like flop around. I think everyone can agree though Crystal Skull is at the bottom.
Yeah,
that's why I haven't seen this one yet. Is because
the bar is like, the hope is, hey, let's just not hope this is the next Crystal Skull, and it's not.
Good. That's good to hear. Then I will watch it at some point. Then
I feel like it's worth a watch. Yeah,
it definitely leans into Harrison's Ford age, which I think Crystal Skull tried to do, and obviously he's like 20 years older now, or however long it's been since they did Crystal Skull, so they lean into it a little bit more. So there's not a lot of like indie running places, like you don't get a lot of that, but it's still really good, I think. Anything to add for your bottom 5, Andy, or we'll go to your top 5?
Well, Andy, the only thing I would say is tell me, because I would love to hear it. Maybe it'll allow me to see it in a different, no pun intended, see it in a different light. Tell me why you enjoyed Haunting so much when I had a different experience. What did you get out of it more?
So what I enjoyed about A Haunting in Venice was that I kept trying to figure out who done it myself, and every time he had an answer for it, but it wasn't for the thing that happened. So every time I was like, oh, it was her, and then he would be like da 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 da, but that wasn't the thing that happened. He figured something out with them as part of the character that like happened to them, but it wasn't the thing. So
I see what you're saying. Okay.
It was one of the few that kept me guessing to the end, because I was like, oh, it was him. Oh, it was her. Oh, it was him. And then I was like, oh my God, I should have seen that the whole time. Why was the blinder on me? Like, I just, because I kept trying to point out all the other ones. So I just really liked the character, the Hercule Poirot, and I thought that they leaned into the horror aspect of it fairly neatly, or like the occult aspect of it, because he doesn't believe in that stuff. So the fact that they introduced it into there and sort of, I don't want to like spoilers, but figured out how it all went was, I thought, pretty interesting. And as far as, I thought the actors all played their roles fairly well.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. I think two things. I think between Death on the Nile and this, I got really spoiled by Glass Onion and by having another round of Knives Out. And that kind of front and center detective type of character that Daniel Craig brings has kind of created a bar in my mind, maybe now in a biased way. But what you just said, I think maybe I didn't digest it that way as I was watching Venice as much the first time, which was, you're right, he uncovers, I guess you say that, like he comes to the conclusion about things,
in about
several people, but it's not the point. The point of it is, but that's unrelated to the thing we're trying to solve,
or related, but not in the way that you think it would be.
Mm-hmm. Or right. It doesn't deliver your conclusion of identifying the person.
But it happens, like, I would say at least twice, maybe even 3 times it happens, and I'm like, well, shit, now, well, like that, like damn it, like, I don't know, I enjoyed that aspect of it. And
I'll have to give it another spin. I know I'll do it at some point anyway, but this will give me a fresh motivation.
Do I think it was better than Death on the Nile, or certainly not Murder on the Orient Express? I think that's probably the crowning jewel of the 3, but no. But I feel like it was close to Death on the Nile.
Fair. All right, thank you.
Andy, you want to get to your top 5?
All right, top 5 for me. At number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 4 for me, and a pretty big surprise, I thought, was Barbie. Actually, pretty high up for me. Number 3, actually, I think I share with Mike, is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. Pretty high up there for me. Number 2 was the Super Mario Brothers movie. I had all kinds of nostalgic, awesome fun with that one. And my number 1 has the word 1 in the title, but it's not that. It's Godzilla -1. It is number 1. So that was my favorite movie of the year by a fair margin, considering the other ones. That's something to be said. And I didn't know anything about this movie. I just randomly started seeing articles pop up on like my web browser homepage at work, and I'm like, what is this? And I like started digging around, and I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know it was coming out. My favorite thing about this movie is it only cost like $20 million to make.
$15
million to make, and I feel like it has better special effects than $300 million Hollywood movies.
It's definitely impressive.
Which is incredible stuff that happens in that movie, given the amount of money they spent on it.
And yeah, they still had a bunch of actors to pay, of course, too, in addition to all the special effects. And it's, for what they did, I think that it's going to continue to set some more records. Like, we covered records it had already broken when we recorded our episode as a review of it. And I think like for like budget to profits, it's going to have some records it sets along the way, because I haven't looked at updated box office, but word has just gotten around more and more about this movie, and they just keep extending it because people keep wanting to go see it, because it has such a good reputation for a good reason.
Funny. Right. So funny thing, like a lot of times, like these Japanese movies showing in American theaters have a very limited run, right? So I started seeing these like, better go see Godzilla -1. You only have 5 days left. I was like, holy shit, I got to go see this like right now. So like 2 days later, like I tried to get my brother and my brother-in-law, who are also big Godzilla fans, to go see it. My brother was busy, but my brother-in-law went to go see it, so we went to go see it with him. He's like, holy shit, like I didn't know I had like this limited amount of time to see it. And I'm like, neither did I. And then we went to go see it, loved it, came back the next day, and I had to actually look up the meaning of the title, Godzilla -1, which is actually really creative. And also spoilery, so I won't say it, but then I found out they're like, oh yeah, all these movie theaters are making a lot of money from Godzilla -1, so you had all this time to see it. And I'm like, damn it! Like
to be
So
fair,
school
Had you?
it was a school night.
if you hadn't gone, they might not have extended it. You know, like
That's possible.
So the moral of the story is, to get Andy to the theater, you have to say, you only have 5 days to see this movie, or it's not going to be in theaters anymore.
FOMO,
Yeah.
man, it works.
Yeah.
The illusion
it
of
really does.
exclusivity.
Yeah. Except when it comes to the thing that's like only in theaters. I'm like, nah, I can get the DVD later. It's fine.
I'd love to
Go
pick
ahead.
your brain about Super Mario Brothers, since we haven't had a chance to talk about that at all yet.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it too. If I had an 11, it would have been there. It was on my list until I watched Oppenheimer today. So tell us about why that's there.
It just from the first crawl of the music, it just enveloped me, just how much I loved the franchise. And I really thought that Chris Pratt's voice would pull me out of it, and like maybe Charlie Day would pull me out of it, but it didn't. It settled me just fine, which I was pretty shocked about. And I kept grinning through the whole movie. And Jess and I kept like hitting each other, like, oh, that's the thing. Oh, that's the thing. Oh, that's the thing. It really, I don't know. I had so much fun at that movie. And we don't see movies in the Dolby theater.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that the one with the big like
Reclining seats and all that
reclining
stuff.
seats, and you sort of like, you don't have much in the way of like crowd noise from behind you or in front of you and stuff. But man, I'll tell you what, we saw 2 movies in the same day. We saw Super Mario Brothers and then Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves, and I'll tell you that's
a good
day.
very good day.
Yeah, that's a good day.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It just, the whole thing just really grabbed me. It just did. And it could
Andy,
be
you pretty much
could be a
reviewed
nostalgia
Mario
thing.
the exact way that I would describe my experience watching Mario. Like smiling ear to ear, like just the best amount of fun that I've had in the theater this year.
And it brought like an emotional connection to the characters, which I already had. Let's not like dance around that. But like they add a little bit of weight to what's happening, and you care at the end, and they bring it around to the point where I had an emotional response to it when things were happening. And let's not forget, I don't remember if I did or not.
He's pleading the fifth. That's what he's doing.
But even Jack Black was awesome as Bowser. Like, I
Yes.
want more Bowser. Like, that was
feel like-
really cool.
I feel like that was the easiest casting in the world. Like,
Yeah.
that just
Really.
makes perfect sense from the moment they said it. I said, "Oh, this movie could be good."
Yeah.
Like, oh, they got that for okay, yeah, all right.
And I just found out that he just got cast in the Minecraft movie. I'm like, well, he's probably going to knock that out of the park too, you know? Like,
Yeah,
I feel like he's one of those actors that does little thing very few things wrong.
I mean, he's easy to
supposed to be in that
typecast.
Borderlands movie coming out too.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's playing Claptrap. He's going to be. But what I was going to get to is the nostalgia, the little nods they had to things that were subtle. So much of it was so great. I mean, I won't be more specific than the GameCube moment. It was just like, that's shit.
Yeah, no, I kept not try not to be loud in the theater, but I'm like pointing and laughing and smiling with Jess, and we're not usually so animated in theaters like that. We'll look at each other and be like, or something like that. But we're not movie talkers because it pisses us off when other people do it. So, but this was one of those movies where I don't know if it was because we were in those little seat box things where it seems like you're watching almost a private movie, but
right.
it was weird to be so animated in a movie like that, because we're usually so sort of like immersed in the movie and just trying to soak it in. This one we felt more engaged with it, and I really appreciated that they were able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that.
And even the other voice acting was great. Personally, the only one that pulled me out was actually Charlie Day. Because I feel like he just did Charlie Day. I don't feel like he tried to disguise himself at all. Like, he just was himself. Which, don't get me wrong, it was good, and I find him entertaining. It just, in terms of like pulling me out of any immersion that you have, that was that. And the only one I didn't like was Seth Rogen. I feel like
Donkey. Okay.
Yeah, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, for whatever reason, just didn't. I don't know. It didn't work. Usually, I think he's great as a voice actor. I just feel like he didn't fit the character as much. But that would be the only bad thing I'd say about the movie. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like they did a lot of nostalgic things for people that have been following Mario since the first one. Yeah. And they did a lot of stuff that kids these days would recognize as well. I think they did a very good job of tying that both together, much in the way that Barbie sort of tied that kind of stuff together.
Well, yeah, and we are, the exact age demographic that has grown up from the beginning of Mario to the present, playing it the whole time.
Yeah.
We were kids with our Nintendos when we, how old was I when Mario came out? Probably 3 or 4 years old. Like,
I think I was, because it came out in what, 80, 88, 87? I was 7 or 8.
It's got to be somewhere in there.
Yeah. I feel like I was as wide-eyed playing that, like, these graphics are amazing, as I was like, wow, Mario on the big screen, So.
Yeah, I felt sad leaving it off, but I couldn't not have Oppenheimer there, so I had to,
I couldn't not put it as high as it did, just because it elicited such a response from me that is somewhat rare. So
yeah,
I've definitely watched it more than anything but the top 3 on my list. Well, top 2. I haven't watched Godzilla -1 again since it's still in theaters, but I have rewatched that enough times that it should be on my list, but it's not.
Yeah, I definitely think Mario Brothers is the movie I've seen the most this year. Between just going to the theater, and for a while there, that was the movie my nieces were into. So when I'd see them, that was just on rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So, Guardians of the Galaxy, Indiana Jones, and Haunting in Venice, I all watched in the last 3 days. and going into Guardians of the Galaxy, I knew it was going to have a bit of weightiness to it, just because of the previews and the things that I had been hearing about it, and being that it had been so long since it was out that I was watching it. I knew it was going to be different than the other two, but still having some of the same themes. I enjoyed the fact that it was different, and it was still good, and it still had that like snappy humor that I would say most Guardian movies and specials have. I enjoyed the way they presented that. Sean Gunn presented that.
Sean Gunn or James Gunn?
James Gunn.
Yeah.
Sean Gunn was Kraglin.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, one of the guns.
Anything to add for the top 5, or we'll move on to Andy's surprises, disappointments. Okay. Andy, you want to give us your surprises and disappointments?
I have 2 surprises and 1 disappointment. A surprise for me was a movie called 80 for Brady. I thought it was going to be really, really cheesy and awful, but I felt like the actresses in it actually pulled it together pretty well. And I really expected to hate this movie because I'm not a Tom Brady fan at all. And maybe that's just because we're from Pittsburgh, but that it really tied together well, and I ended up really enjoying the movie, and it had some really good heartfelt moments that make you sort of step outside of yourself a little bit and consider your life at points. I don't know how else to say it, but that was a surprise for me.
Serious question: was this a you pick or a Jess pick?
It was a Jess pick.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I assumed. Just making
probably wouldn't have watched it otherwise, but I'm glad that I did now. I would actually recommend it to somebody who just like a nice, fun, heartfelt movie.
Okay, cool.
And the actresses were good. And if you're like a Sally Field or the hell's her name?
Jane
Lily and Lily Tomlin. Yeah, if you're a fan of any of those people or a Patriots fan at all, like, watch this movie. My other surprise, because I thought it was gonna suck, was the movie 65. I actually somewhat enjoyed the dinosaurs in it.
Yeah,
and I thought Adam Driver was actually pretty good, considering there wasn't a lot for him to do other than fighting dinosaurs. So it actually surprised me because I really thought it was gonna be a glorified futuristic Jurassic Park or something, and I thought that it actually did a fairly decent job of not being that, to a point where I enjoyed it.
I'll be honest, I didn't care for that one. I did see that one and I was like, eh.
It didn't really elicit strong feelings from me one way or the other. It was just.
But that's why it was a surprise, because I thought it was going to suck. And
That's fair.
That's fair.
It
didn't suck, but it didn't make the list. So, and I believe this was on maybe my most anticipated for. I don't know, but the movie Strays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I really expected something better from a movie about dogs with Will Ferrell voicing a dog, with Jamie Foxx voicing a dog, and it I don't know if they like way overestimated how the humor was going to go in the movie, but I didn't really care for it too much, and like I had pretty high expectations for it.
That's fair.
I saw this too. I feel like they dialed it up to like 13. And they would have been fine hitting like a good solid funny adult R-rated humor movie with like an 8.
Yeah, but it got to the point where it was like really cringy.
At times.
Yeah.
I also felt like it didn't know what it wanted to do, where it tried to tug at your heartstrings because it's a dog and you feel bad for it, but also be this raunchy, ridiculous comedy. And it was just like, you got to pick if you want to be old school or Homeward Bound. Like, pick one of the two, and then trying to mesh those two together, it didn't work.
I feel like they tried to dance that line in way of dancing the line. They erased the line, so you didn't know what they were actually going for.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Anything else, or Mike? Did you have something? I thought you were going to say something.
No, I just said, "Oh, okay."
Okay, gotcha.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, drum roll. Yeah, it's not that good. All right, we'll move on to mine. Starting with my number 10, which I think is probably going to surprise a lot of people.
No honorable mentions?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true. I got to do that first. Honorable mentions for me: Barbie, just missed the cut. I did really enjoy it. I'd like to put it in my top 10, but didn't make it. Blue Beetle just missed my top 10. I think it was probably one of the better DC movies this year. Enjoyed that one a lot. Third honorable mention for me was a movie called Still, which is the Michael J. Fox documentary that's on Apple.
Ooh, I've heard excellent things about that movie.
I really liked it. I'm a big Michael J. Fox fan, so just hearing about his life, how that all came together. And they have some really cool like reenactments of like, obviously they can't like use certain maybe like they didn't have footage for it or something, but there's like a moment in the movie where it talks about like how he's splitting time between working on Family Ties and doing Back to the Future. And they just had this really cool, I thought, transition where they have a reenactment of like someone playing him basically going in the car, driving to set late at night, and then he comes out of the car, they dress him up in wardrobe, they hand him a camera, and he's on set and filming Back to the Future. And like stuff like that really stood out to me in the movie, and I thought was really, really cool. So I think it's worth a watch if you like Michael J. Fox and want to see some of that stuff.
I gotta talk to somebody, maybe you guys, about how to borrow your Apple TV account, because I'm sure there's a lot on that platform that I would enjoy, but that specifically I would really like to see.
Yeah, I'd stole my parents for that one. So when I watched that one. All right, my top 10. Starting with number 10, which I feel like will probably surprise you guys of where this is placed. Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is my number 10.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. This is one of those movies where I feel like I went in with such high expectations that I wanted it to be really good. I think it fell short from some of the other more recent Mission Impossible movies. I still think Fallout and Rogue Nation, I think I enjoyed more than this one, which kind of left me a little bit disappointed. So I actually had this on my disappointments list too, just because it didn't hit that high bar for me. Still really good, just wanted it to be better. Number 9 for me, which is I think the only movie on my list we haven't talked about from anybody else. Transformers: Rise of the Beasts is my number 9. Transformers movies without Michael Bay are actually pretty damn good. Who would have thought? This one was one of those movies where I saw I was curious to see what it was like. I was done with it, immediately wanted to go back and see it again. I think I ended up seeing it twice in theaters. I definitely know I saw it twice at some point. The ending to this movie I found really fucking cool and what it kind of ties into, and I feel like it's going to be one of those things where people are either going to love it or hate it. I fucking loved it, and I'm kind of really excited to see what they do next with what's coming. So that's just my little tease. If you're curious, check out the movie. I still think it's a really solid, fun watch. Yeah. Number 8 for me, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Again, this was one we talked about. It's a really solid Indiana Jones movie. For probably being what I think is definitively at this point, Harrison Ford's last go round of Indiana Jones. It didn't shit the bed and made a pretty solid movie, and I think a good way for him to go out. So I enjoyed it. I saw this one a couple times too. Yeah, really liked it. 7 for me, Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I'll echo a lot of what these guys said. I think it was really good. I wasn't sure what to expect seeing it. It was better than what I expected, for sure. I thought it was a lot of fun. I've only seen it once. I do need to watch it again. This was one of the movies I think I picked up for Black Friday when it was on sale cheap. And I haven't actually put it in to watch it since that, but it's definitely on my list of one that I need to get to and rewatch again just because I thought it was that much fun. And my number 6 is John Wick Chapter 4, which, again, a good way to sort of, I don't know, I guess we'll see whether it's capping off that part of the franchise for Keanu or not, but I thought that was really, really solid, really cool. Fights are all awesome. Yeah, I think like Mike said, they did it again. It's the same stuff you liked, just in another movie.
So, one thing that I'd like to add to the Dungeons & Dragons is if you are a fan of Dungeons & Dragons, if you've been a fan for a long time, a lot of the references they make, I feel like, elevate the movie a little bit. So people, like, maybe from the outside who aren't Dungeons & Dragons fans or follow that fantasy setting, I will say, may miss some of the humor or callbacks that happen in that movie that I feel like make it just a smidge more special.
Yeah, okay. I feel like it's, I like alluded to, there's moments where you can see people succeeding dice throws or failing dice throws that, you know, like something happening that, boy, I didn't think the character would accomplish that, or geez, that seems out of context for this scene. And you're like, they must have had a bad roll. Like you just see it happening like constantly throughout the movie in different situations, and it's just like, yep, that's great. And if there was one YouTube video, I'm sure there's more of them out there, but one that I watched that went through and like notated each and every failed and succeeded roll that somebody had during the film, and there's a lot more of them than you might think, and it adds up to just a fun, 20-minute video to watch on YouTube. I do not remember who did it though.
Okay.
I'm a little shocked that you have Transformers on this list. I guess I just sort of in my head compartmentalize those away as unwatchable nowadays. I've heard Bumblebee is good. Is it Bumblebee?
Mm-hmm. Bumblebee is good.
I've heard that's very good. And apparently there's one after that was but
I gotta look at like the timeline of Transformers because I feel like there might be one in there too, and now I don't remember if that was a Michael Bay one or if that was
Last Night or something.
Okay, yeah, that's back to Michael Bay.
Okay, they're so like zany to me that it's I have to be in a very particular mood to like want to bring myself to turn something like that on anymore.
Yeah, I still think the Michael Bay ones are the worst of the bunch. Like Bumblebee was a different director. Rise of the Beast is a different director. And both of those, I think, one, have a better sense of humor. Two, they're a little bit scaled down than the bombastic explosion fest that is Michael Bay. So they feel a little bit more maybe subdued. But I think they have much better character stuff in them too.
Yeah, I had wrote off Rise of the Beast, and I haven't watched it because my association with Transformers films is the Michael Bay stuff. Even though I saw Bumblebee and loved it, I still have that association. And it didn't even occur to me to check if he directed that or not. But it's typically like, I will watch them once they're free to me in some way. Once they show up on a service I'm already paying for, or as some way that I don't have to pay, I will check them out. That's kind of where I was on that.
Also, I have to be very bored.
I'm bored all the time, man. It's,
Rise of the Beast looks like it is streaming on Prime, Paramount.
Okay, I will check it out on Prime.
Paramount.
I will actually give it a chance then. If it's more along the lines of Bumblebee than it is along the lines of the Bay films, I will check it out.
Yeah, it's Stephen Caple Jr. is the one that directed this one. Directed Creed 2.
Okay.
Nothing else on his list is something that we may recognize, but anyway, yeah, I think, like I said, Transformers movies without Michael Bay directing are actually pretty good. Granted, we've only had 2 of them right now, but I think they're pretty solid Transformers movies. We did Bumblebee during the pandemic, didn't we? I think that was the one we made Josh watch, or that was that a Never Seen That?
It was, I think, because I did see it, and I can't.
I feel like that was one of the first ones we did for maybe Never Seen That during the pandemic.
Yeah, we're stuck inside. What the hell else can we?
Usually, the Never Seen That's with Josh content. Or like, what can we force feed Josh that he typically doesn't watch?
And it always comes back around to Michael Bay. It seems.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. Transformers, Bad Boys. Although, I mean, Fast and the Furious movies may as well be Michael Bay movies, even though they're not.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't like I said, it doesn't sound like either any of you guys got to Transformers, but I think it's worth a watch. So if you check it out, you can report back and let me know what you think. I know we talked about most of my other 5, so if we're good, I'll move on to the top 5. Unless somebody has anything else.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Moving on to my number 5, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem at number 5. Echoing a lot of what Mike said, I think this is a great movie. Again, voice cast is awesome. What they did with the Turtles was awesome. I think they nailed that dynamic for sure. Art style is really unique and cool. I definitely hope that... I feel like it made enough money or got enough praise that they should be getting a sequel for this one, so I'm hoping that still happens. But I haven't seen any updates on that anytime soon. I do think we're supposed to get some sort of show, I think we're supposed to be getting something on Nickelodeon, maybe like a some sort of villains show or something, if I'm remembering sort of correctly. I'd have to look all that information up and try to get back to you. I feel like I vaguely remember hearing some sort of spinoff from the movie, maybe before we get the sequel. I just don't remember what it involved.
That would be sweet.
That's what I'm assuming, but I don't know for sure. I don't know how much details are out there about the show. So yeah, I'd have to report back. Hopefully I'm not blowing smoke up everybody's asses for that one, but I think that's happening. Number 4 for me, Oppenheimer. Again, really awesome theater experience. I do, like I said, need to watch it again. Only saw it once. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to add based on what we talked about earlier. Number 3 for me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think this is a really good sort of cap of this trilogy. Had a lot of heart. Cut pretty deep, I think, for some moments of this film. But still really good. Still has a lot of funny moments. I think I'm trying to remember. I think I've only seen this one once. I do need to watch it again. A lot of these, I always try to get to movies that I think are going to be on my list at least twice, just to make sure I'm still like, this is where I want it type of thing. So since some of these movies I've only seen once, I feel like my list could shift based on a second viewing for a lot of these. But for right now, this is kind of where I'm at. But all around, still really liked it. I'd like to see what happens with this. I guess the characters that are sort of set up for the end of the movie, and if that continues in the MCU or where this goes from here. Because as a trilogy goes, there's still a definitive end for certain things, and otherwise it seems like there's open-ended stuff for some people. So it's up in the air. I still see what they do the next couple of years. Number 2 for me, might surprise you guys. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is number 2 for me. Nothing bad to say about this movie. It's fantastic. I can't wait to see Beyond the Spider-Verse, I think is what they're calling the third one. And now I can't remember if that's next year or if we have 2 years to wait for that. But yeah, they know what they're doing. It's the only Spider-Man movies from Sony right now that are any good. The animation style is still friggin' fantastic. The voice cast for these movies are great. All the characters are awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see where this goes. Number 1 for me, echoing a lot of what Andy said, Super Mario Brothers movie is number 1 for me. I can't really add too much on top of what how he reviewed it. The nostalgia, the fun of the movie, it's like I said, it's the most fun I've had in the movie theater this year. It's the movie I've seen the most this year. I think like Andy described, I was grinning most of the movie. It just hit all the right buttons for me. So yeah, that's my number 1.
Your number 2 was
Across the Spider-Verse.
Across the Spider-Verse. I was going to watch that as one of the 5 movies in 3 days, but we have the lowest tier Netflix account, and apparently you have to have 1 tier up to watch like the really good movies.
Oh, I didn't know they did that.
They were locked to me. Like, yeah.
That's weird.
I wasn't aware that there were tiers like that.
Yeah, so we have the tier where we have to watch ads for anything that we watch, and also
I knew about that.
We don't get like the ultra premium movies apparently. So
I didn't know that was part of that arrangement too.
Yeah, neither did we. I'm like, why the fuck is there a lock on here? Why the fuck can I watch this movie? So I was a little disappointed about that because I really would like to see that movie.
Yeah, that sucks.
Makes me feel good that I canceled my Netflix until they release the next season of Stranger Things. And I will purchase a month, watch them all, and cancel it again.
Well, Andy, I guess that'll be another movie. If you get around to watching it, you have to report back and let us know what you think.
I still haven't done that from 2022.
We should just make an episode where Andy gets to his back catalog of movies and we just go through his list and see where he's at for the last 5 years.
Yes, I fully support that.
5 years in review with Andy.
I would totally do that. Do you have a list of like movies you haven't got to?
I would have to see the lists.
I was gonna say, it's got to be the official
from those
list,
5
right?
years, you know.
Like, would we have to just go through your anticipated the last 5 years or something and start there?
Say Brian probably has them written down somewhere. If not,
I'll send you the spreadsheet after that. After we're done recording.
Yes, I will volunteer to help organize this endeavor.
Yeah, so I know we talked about my top 5 with other people. I don't know if you guys have anything to add for those. Anybody surprised at where my stuff fell on the list? I don't know.
What was number 3 again?
Number 3, Guardians 3.
Guardians 3. Okay. And 4 was Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Okay. I'm really worried about Oppenheimer because everyone keeps saying that it's like this political intrigue type of movie, and sometimes I find those really boring.
I'm
a little like apprehensive about it.
I use the word political because the government was involved. Like by the nature of the history of it, the government's involved. I wouldn't necessarily call that political in the way that a lot of things can be used. There are other characters that harness politics for their own ends that are involved, but you see I think if this was fiction, I don't think I would have the reaction to it that I did. The fact that nearly everything presented, at least in its base form, is what the hell happened, and like what these people did and all the players involved and what they were after themselves and how they pulled strings and how everything interacted. I think that's what really cements it for me.
The gist of the movie, Andy, I feel like is like certain characters on trial throughout the movie, and as they're telling their story, you're getting the flashbacks of what happened.
Oh, okay. That's a neat premise, at least.
Yeah. Even that simple of the angle is not how I thought the movie was going to be framed whatsoever. And that's kind of how they tell it through. That's their way into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, most biopics, you just assume they're just going, okay, this is when they were born, this is what they went through, this is when they died, or like a certain section of their life, and it just goes very linear through that. It's kind of that, but it does kind of jump around here and there. Which I think, to Josh's point, I think it was very gripping the way they sort of edited, and once you're kind of into it, you're kind of locked in. I felt that way anyway. But yeah, it's worth checking out if you feel like carving out the 3 hours.
Brian, I think I'm a little surprised actually that Guardians is as high for you personally that it is. I think you had high esteem for the first 2 generally. But this one in particular, given everything else that you had to choose from this year, I think I'm kind of taking a little shocked that it made it this high for you.
I feel like after a first viewing, I feel like I came out of Guardians 3 thinking this is my favorite Guardians movie.
Okay.
Now, that might change based on a second viewing, which I didn't get to.
Right.
Typically for me, I feel like when I watch movies a second time, they kind of fall down. Like there's the first impressions of movies, for ones that I like, will most likely kind of dip on a second viewing. If it kind of holds steady or I feel better about it on a second viewing, then I think that's pretty good for the movie. But so there's a chance on a second viewing this could have hit lower on my list, but after the one view, because this was what, May when this came out?
Yeah, early May.
So it's been a while since I watched it, but trying to dig through my memory of how I felt watching it, it was definitely up there when I came out of it.
Nice. The fact that Spider-Verse did not make my list again, which it didn't for 2018 either. There's something about these that are so utterly creative and very involved in their conceptualization, their execution, their design. When Mike spoke about it earlier, I think Mike, was it you? Was it Andy?
It was on
Andy
my list.
was, Mike was the first one to have it on his list.
I couldn't watch it. Fucking Netflix.
That's right. Well, it came up in someone's mention earlier, but it's. I think there were times where I almost found the animation overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on.
I think they realized that what they were capable of doing and what they were able to imagine was cool, and it was so well received in the first one. But I feel like it was tempered a little bit more. It was used for effect at certain times in the first one, whereas like beginning to end, I feel like I was very overwhelmed with visual information.
Yeah.
Nearly throughout this entire sequel, and at times it kind of pulled away from paying attention to what's going on, because I know there's so much that they're trying to communicate to me and share with me that my eyes are darting all over the screen trying to catch every pixel that I can, that I'm not as invested in just viewing it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I guess the art style that they did for the first one was they had to create that from the ground up, because stuff like that had never been done before. And the gist of that movie is in one world, and they're pulling in certain characters from other worlds. So it's just the characters that look like they're sort of different. This one, you're universe hopping, and at the time they make this movie, like, they've had the first movie experience under their belt, and now they've taken that, kind of dialed it up to 11 and said, well, how can we kind of play with the art style and different formats more? I think maybe they just wanted that creative freedom to try to mess with it and see what they could do. Now, going to each and every world that they went to in this movie, each one is a different art style, each one is animated differently and like looks visually different. And I thought that was really cool, but I can get your sense of like, wow, this is overwhelming because everything looks completely different every 15 minutes and they're just jumping from place to place.
Yeah. Which happened at times, but even in certain scenes, I feel they just were like overloading the screen with visual stuff.
Yeah,
and that happened frequently.
I had that feeling in the first one, even so. It's just there.
Oh well, then this one might blow your mind, Andy.
So much brightness and colors and things all on the same screen at the same time. Sometimes you're actually like taken aback a little bit, like whoa, I have to absorb a lot here.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, as an achievement in art design, of course it's innovative. It literally is. It broke ground. But I think it kind of took away from my ability to just enjoy a movie and enjoy a story. I definitely need to, just like the first one, I need to revisit and absorb that in a cleaner way again. But I'm still looking forward to the conclusion of it. I'm hoping that the third piece they'll announce, comes out in December of this year or early next year, because it's listed in post-production right now. There's not even a 2024 date for it. Like, it doesn't even say like sometime in 2024. Right. I'm hoping it does.
Yeah, I'm almost willing to bet I think it's 2025, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean I'm a little bit biased, I guess. Like, Spider-Man's one of my favorite superheroes. I think Miles as a character is one of the most fascinating in some of the Spider-Man media right now. Like the Spider-Man games with Miles, what they do with his character and his arcs and stuff are friggin' fantastic. What they've done with Miles in the Spider-Verse movies, I think, are great. So I'm just really excited to see this character get to have, I don't know, I guess more to do, and having to get like to be the star and more of a forefront for the Spider-Man mythos, I guess.
Sure.
All right, we're I think pushing like 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna quickly go through my surprises, disappointments, and we'll start to wrap up here. Surprises for me are nothing new. They're movies I touched on my list. Transformers and Dungeons & Dragons. Both of those movies for me, I think I went in with lower expectations. I came out really enjoying both of them, so they made my surprises list. Disappointments for me, I put Mission Impossible on here only because, like I said, I think my expectations for that movie were so very high that I expected it to be in my top 5, maybe my number 1, because it was definitely up there for anticipated for me. Now again, this is one I only viewed once. There's a chance it would come back higher up on the list if I got around to seeing it a second time and kind of sat with it a little bit more. And I couldn't even really tell you what I didn't really like about it and why it kind of fell short, but I don't know. I didn't feel like I had as fun with this one as I did some of the more recent Mission Impossibles, and that's just kind of the feeling I went with when I made my list, and that's kind of where it fell. Another disappointment for me, I put The Flash on here just because I think that was another one that felt like it was being overhyped, and when I finally came out of the theater, I didn't think it hit the levels of hype that I was hearing and word of mouth from critics, reviews, whatever was coming out at the time. And yeah, just kind of fell a little bit flat to me. Like Andy said, I think Batman and Supergirl are the best part of the Flash movie, which is not great when you're the Flash. Like, I don't know. I wanted more from it. Last disappointment for me is the creator. I think visually it is fucking amazing. As a sci-fi world, it is fantastic. For the story and the main character, I didn't really give a shit. And that kind of sucked, I think. The main character was very hard to get behind. I found it very difficult to root for him. And that kind of, I feel like, hinged on the movie. Like, you needed to be behind what he was doing and what was going on. And I just didn't. But, like I said, visually, what they did with that world and how it looks and certain things that they did with the tech and the stuff they set up, like, it's really, really fucking cool. And I'd like to see some kind of other story in that world. But this one that we got just didn't really do it for me. And I think that was another one that was getting very good word of mouth and kind of fell flat a little bit for me.
Is this the movie that has like the AI child that he has to save or something? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, Gareth Edwards, I think, really knows how to do sci-fi stuff well. I think maybe it's just the character stuff that suffers. So anyway, that's my list. And again, the other thing I do when we do these lists is, I mentioned it before, I go through the Rotten Tomatoes lists and tally up the scores to see which of us had the best critic score based on our top 10 and which one had the best audience score for our top 10. As it stands right now that we're complete, Mike actually grabbed both of them for this one. He has the best critic and audience. So Mike is at a critic score 92.6. That's the average for your 10. Damn. Critic for Josh was 77.2. Aquaman brought you down. That was your critic score of 35.
Saw X didn't bring that down. Saw X actually.
Saw X is at an 80 for critic.
Oh no shit. Okay.
Andy, you were at a 79.4 for critic. You were pretty good. Your lowest was Renfield at 58.
Okay.
I was at an 82.8 for critic. My lowest was Transformers at 52. Audience score, Mike averaged 92.8. I just missed you. I was at a 92.3. So you just edged me out for that one.
I'll take all of yours.
All of yours for audience were at least. You had 183. Everything else was in the 90s for you.
What was 83
for audience? 83 was Barbie.
Oh, okay.
Josh, your audience score was 88.4. Looks like the lowest one for you was Thanksgiving at 79.
Yeah, that's still respectable, especially for that.
Yeah. Andy, audience score for you, 83.5. Like I mentioned before, your lowest was Leave the World Behind, 34.
Which I don't understand. I really did like the movie.
For having a 34 in there, that's a respectable score, though. That's
yeah.
You had some high 70s, a couple 80s, and mostly 90s. I think for yours, at least 5 in the 90s. And like I said, I ended up with a 92.3 audience score. Lowest for me was the 88 for Indiana Jones. Everything else was 90s for me. So yeah, that's where we stand for this year. I'll run through the list again quickly. Mike's top 10. Number 10 was Barbie. Number 9 was Oppenheimer. Number 8 was Air. Number 7, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Number 6, John Wick Chapter 4. Number 5, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 3, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Number 2, Godzilla -1. Number 1 was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. For Josh, top 10. Number 10 was Thanksgiving. Number 9, John Wick Chapter 4. Number 8, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Number 7, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Number 6, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 5, Wonka. Number 4, The Flash. Number 3, Saw X. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 1 was Oppenheimer. For Andy's top 10, number 10, Renfield. Number 9, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 8, Leave the World Behind. Number 7, A Haunting in Venice. Number 6, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 4, Barbie. Number 3, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Number 2, the Super Mario Brothers movie. Number 1, Godzilla -1. For my list, top 10, number 10, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 9, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Number 8, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Number 7, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Number 6, John Wick Chapter 4. Number 5, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Number 4, Oppenheimer. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 2, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And my number 1 was the Super Mario Brothers movie. And this concludes our favorite movies of 2023. So we'll just run it down. If you've enjoyed the episode or the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to give us a share on social media. Make sure to follow or subscribe to keep up with the show. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Amazon. Stitcher's no longer a thing. Hope you're not listening there because we can't get you. Although, you know, if this was the only place for you to go, you'll probably never hear from us again. So hopefully you found us elsewhere. Find us on Facebook. Search Bry Guy and Super Friends, or go to facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. As I mentioned at the top of the show, if you want to give us comments or feedback, questions, anything we want to maybe do for the 300th, you can do it there. That's probably the best place to go. If you want to send us other random comments, topic suggestions, you can try to email bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. If anyone's actually sent me anything there, I have not checked it in probably 2 years, so good luck. We're still listed on Twitter at BGSuperFriends. I haven't honestly checked that in ages. That's another one that's starting to fall by the wayside just because I kind of hate what Twitter's become. So, like I said, I'll have to look at other social media outlets maybe for other places to post. We'll see if I get to that sometime in the near future. Also, as I mentioned, top of the show, if you want to follow me on Twitch, it's at Jedi Bry Guy, Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. I've been going through BioShock in a couple clips here, so we'll see how long it takes me to finally get through that, and if I stream any other random stuff between there or afterwards. I guess that's it. We'll see what we do for 299, and then we got 300 we got to figure out, and we'll see what we come up with. On behalf of Andy, Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.